Good morning, everybody. It is, what is it, April 22nd? It's Monday morning. It's Cup of Jones. Hi, everyone. Boy, this is a chatty chat this morning. Mushworks is just nonstop with the monitors. It's like 5 comments I've seen before we go live this morning, where we're going to have TV monitors in the studio, and that's big news. Mushworks, I'm here to tell you right off the bat, no, you will not be seeing new monitors in the studio. It is something that we want. I want those lights to work in the studio before we get monitors back there. Cheers, everybody. I gotta be honest. I usually start a Cup of Jones with a lot of little bits of information, a lot of small developments that are happening in the studio, some fun stuff to look forward in this week with this schedule. This last week, I have been doing a lot of Easy Allies work. Anything outside of that has been Days Gone, just nonstop Days Gone. I finished it this weekend. I wrote the review this weekend, and Bloodworth has that script. The embargo is this Thursday morning, and so tune in Thursday morning for my review of Days Gone. But it's a little rough going into a Monday because I have a live stream on Beyond today. We have the group stream and the podcast along with other things shooting tomorrow. I'm shooting Trailer Jones tomorrow, and then you have Wednesday, and then bam, Thursday morning, that review's got to be done. So if I don't make a lot of time for that edit tomorrow or Tuesday, then I'm going to be, after having a very gracious period with the time, thank you very much, Sony, review access provided by PlayStation, I will be a little bit down to the wire with that review because it's a big game, big script. I will be spending my Wednesday editing, wrapping up the video for Days Gone. And I'm also going to be... It's funny, people are talking about also, I forgot, Mortal Kombat 11 is this week, and so people are talking about Mortal Kombat 11 spoilers online. We also have to be very wary of Avengers spoilers, because we are gearing up towards Endgame, and of course, there's Game of Thrones going. We had Game of Thrones last night. I'm going to be meeting with Mr. Michael Damiani this afternoon, if all goes well, if it is still in the schedule, and the two of us are going to sit down and talk about episodes 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones, and Season 8, and we're going to speculate maybe what the heck is going to happen. Looks like next episode is probably going to be a big episode. And so anticipating that, I got tickets Saturday night to see Endgame. And then Sunday night, I'm going to be watching Game of Thrones. And then next week, Monday, we're going to sit down again to go over our analysis of the last episode. And Tuesday night of next week, not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, we're going to be recording our spoiler mode for Avengers Endgame, which is going to be an extremely packed table. I think a lot of people are going to see that film and want to weigh in on stuff. We might have to do musical chairs and get people up and down. Speaking of Mortal Kombat, tomorrow night is a Mortal Kombat. My allergies just kind of blew up last night. Sorry if I'm sniffly today. Feeling all right. Just weird allergies. Tomorrow night is a Mortal Kombat 11 tournament. I actually have kind of grown to love the Mortal Kombat fighting system in the last couple years. I don't know if a passion, just a personal passion, translates into skill in any way, but I would love to. The closest I've come to actually winning a tournament, I won a tournament once with Brad, but then Brad and I battled after that for who was going to win the better prize of the 2 prizes that we had, and Brad won that. So it just kind of poured a little salt in there to have won a tournament, but then lost to my tournament buddy. So I've never had that like solo tournament win. So I don't know if that's tomorrow night, but we don't do tournaments once a month as a rule now, and so when tournaments come, you got to take advantage. But the following Tuesday will be the Hall of Greats, so some pretty big group streams coming up. Ben is reviewing Mortal Kombat 11, so we will see. We'll see what Days Gone's like. We'll see what Mortal Kombat's like. I won Pokken, but that wasn't a tournament. I did win Pokken, but we were just playing Pokken. Like, that was not officially I did not get a prize. That was not an officially sanctioned Easy Allies tournament. So I've just never had that, that really satisfying tournament win. But we'll see. Those are my 2 games. I don't even remember what I was playing with Brad where we won. But that and Pokken. And to be honest, I have not been sharpening my Pokken skills over the years. So if we had that Pokemon tournament today, I don't know how I would do. I'm also going to be, again, a lot of this is personal news. Apologies. Maybe I haven't seen Blood in chat, but maybe Blood can jump in and let us know more company-wide stuff that's going on. I think with a lot of reviews, we just had Brad working on Katana Zero last week, and I know Huber just wrapped up a review. I can't remember the last thing that Huber reviewed, but Max is on the next episode of Frame Trap. So a lot of the allies have been either solo working on their own projects, their own shows, or we've had a lot of reviews coming in the last couple weeks. So I don't have a lot to report business-wide, I got to be honest, but I am going to be hopefully streaming, if all goes well. Again, I got a lot of other stuff going on this week, but Dreams, the beta finally launched last week, Tuesday morning of last week. We sat down, and for 2 hours, I went through some tutorials. I replayed those tutorials because there's two different sets of Welcome to Dreams tutorials. There's the DualShock and there's the Move controllers. And if you do the Move controllers, it doesn't unlock the DualShock tutorials. And I had already done them. I kind of fast forwarded through them when I did them, but I'm kind of obsessed with leveling up in that game. You get levels experience based on like anything you do, and you build stuff, play stuff, and so it's kind of tough to. It's weird to chart like specifically what is doing that and what is leveling you up. But of course, like now I'm addicted to. I spent all this time leveling up Deacon St. John and Days Gone, and now I just want to level up my little dream characters. Yeah, and as Snowcone Guy mentions in chat, our Patreon is doing well. We are about 50K right now, so thank you so much for everybody. We actually had a lot of mega sponsor hype. We had like 2 or 3 people reach out for mega sponsor, so if those people are still interested in being mega sponsor for the next couple of months, we could be pretty locked into that position. So thank you to everybody who has previously been a mega sponsor. Thank you to our new mega sponsors. I'm excited tomorrow night to read off some of our new, or in a week to read off some of our new sponsor names. But that's it. That's all I got for you at the beginning. Again, I've been really focused on, I haven't reviewed a game in a while, and when you get something like Days Gone, it tends to push everything else aside because it's, I can hit that embargo. So Thursday will be the review embargo for everybody else. And kudos to Sony, who's actually been given, I think, back on like Horizon Zero Dawn and Spider-Man and a lot of God of War, a lot of PlayStation exclusives that we were given a fair amount of lead time on. So, some companies give us that, some companies don't. And so when we have those opportunities, we got to take them because those reviews are just a great way for people to be introduced into Easy Allies. And hopefully a lot of people are curious about Days Gone and they come to check out a review. But I can say that. Here, I can say this. This is one thing that's very exciting. Talking about reviews, talking about videos that haven't come up yet. But we got the wonderful, this is kind of a pseudo unboxing. We got the wonderful Mortal Kombat 11 Collector's Edition that we will be handing off to Mr. Don Casanova. But I just love how epic this box is. So it came in a shipping box, and then there was this box in the middle, and then there's nothing in there. It's just a big empty plastic box. But like, how dope is this box? Like I'm like a cat who just like hangs out in a cardboard box. The collector's, I mean, you can look up the collector's edition and see what that is. But just this, I was just like, man, I'm gonna put stuffed animals in this. This is incredible. So like, I kind of want to give it to Don, but I'm like, I'm gonna steal this for the studio, especially because I'm in like very much into, organizing supplies, and even though you saw a somewhat organized library, like there's still a lot more work that we have to do in there. But storage, I'm all about storage now with the studio. So I love that thing. Another fun addition. Keep adding stuff slowly to the studio. Yeah. Little late this morning. Got up. It's one of those mornings where you set the alarm and then you blink, and then it's 40 minutes later, and the alarm apparently didn't go off. And I've had a pretty good schedule for Cup of Jones, but I was a little bit late, so I'm a little bit frazzled. I'm not tired because I did get good sleep last night after not getting good sleep at all this weekend, finishing up Days Gone. We will move on over to business questions. Cheers, everybody. The storage will be nothing but Mortal Kombat boxes, Jeffrey Tessar. Nothing. You walk into that library and it'll just be walls and walls. Mortal Kombat boxes. All right, Ulf himself. I know this might be a Kyle and Huber question, but with E3 closing in, have you guys started thinking of the betting special? I really loved the ones you did where you had East Division and Coast Division simply because it meant everyone was involved. Yes, Huber and Bossman have been talking about it. We have our meeting coming up for the month of May. So now the rest of the allies, the other 7 allies will weigh in. I think the big difference, we've talked about this for a long time, the big difference between I'm making promises here. Don't count on this because I will not be the one producing this segment. I'm sure they will have a lot of fun ideas. In the past, a lot of that was just done by Kyle and Huber. Kyle and Huber would come up with the script and all the questions, and we would all just kind of like, okay, what are we doing? And so anticipating that to happen again for E3 because I think we kind of got away from the specifically Kyle v. Huber, and I think our betting special for E3 will try to I think is the appropriate words, will try to encapsulate that rivalry. And then the rest of us will be involved, but like maybe not so much with the personas. And I think we will be, on their teams or playing for them to try to see who's going to win, because I would just love a good Bossman v. Huber for E3. But yeah, we're going to be ironing out the specifics of that. I'm curious to see what work they have done. Alex Pisa. Any other ways you guys are looking to promote the brand Easy Allies? Yeah, it's kind of a general question, but I'll give you one example that I was thinking of last night when I saw this question. And that is Box Peak Season 2. So Kyle is now feverishly working away at Box Peak. We were hoping to start that back up before the end of 2019. And I want to promote that. I want to spend money on promoting that. I think it's a great opportunity because we have this gap between seasons 1 and seasons 2. I think a lot of people didn't, discover Box Peak, didn't find out about Box Peak. We were curious how that was going to happen organically. We did, a bit of publicity on Box Peak, but the numbers have grown over time. We have a Box Peak stage in Smash Brothers. We have at least one Box Peak Dreams level that I checked out. It was co-op, but it required 2 players, so I didn't play it because Amanda was asleep, but maybe I'll grab Amanda at some point and we'll play some Box Peak together. So it's actually a very fortuitous opportunity for spending money on publicizing something, which is something I don't believe we have ever done beyond just creating providing the resources to actually produce the show. But spending money on just getting the word out, I think would be an interesting test with something like Box Peak, because it's something we can promote on its own. We can show you a trailer for season 2, maybe with a little bit of season 1 in there, and we're not necessarily giving like too much away, but you can still kind of understand what Box Peak is. And then even though we're promoting a show that'll come out in 4 weeks or 2 weeks, you can still go back and watch the first season. So we'll put up an ad and be like, coming up on this date, Box Peak season 2, go back and watch season 1 for free right now on youtube.com/easyallies. And so that would not only be obviously an advertisement for Box Peak, but an advertisement for Easy Allies in general. For a lot of people that might potentially see that ad, they'd be like, Easy what? And then even if they don't like Box Peak, check us out. Come on over to Easy Allies. So yeah, I think the 2 big things on the top of my head that we have not done a lot of and could do a lot more are travel, which we will get to at a later date, and about ways we can explore that, specifically not for 2019, but for 2020, and promoting Box Peak or other shows in general. Brandon K. Gann. Will EZA look into bringing in more guests like Game Explain and KH Insider from last year for E3? And subsequently, will there being half the conferences this year, with the amount of E3 coverage be cut down? Or will the Allies fill the amount of time that would have been there with additional impressions or specialized E3 content, E3 themed content? I can't make any promises. I will let you know, Brandon, that we are stoked that there are less press conferences this year in that way. I'm sad because I love press conferences. I would love it if there were more. I would love it if like every single publisher in the industry, it'd be very stressful and tiring, but if they were all like, we're all going to do it, and just everybody showed up and they all had their own, battling press conferences that, gave each at least 30 minutes to an hour to do analysis after the fact. But at the same time, if companies do back out, if there's less for us to do, E3 itself is a very grueling time. That Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is very tiring because obviously we're up, and then you're not only going from getting up and driving to the LA Convention Center and running around and checking out as much as you can, but then you come back to the studio and you talk for a very, very long time and then get home knowing that in, 6 hours, you're going to be awake, showered in your car heading out again. So having more time to prepare and to get rest before that week is something that we certainly welcome. But I think it all depends on what to do. We will very much likely not tack on stuff before or after the first and last press conference of the day. I think what you're probably talking about, and what I would be looking at, is the time in between. So if you have a press conference in the morning and a press conference at night, it would probably make sense because we're there, we're ready to go to fill that middle time with some speculation. Maybe talk about companies that, because we would spend that time talking about, hey, what's Sony going to do for E3? And maybe that had already happened, or maybe it would be time to talk about that speculation-wise. And so with all of the publishers backing out of press conferences, being like, what, EA Play is going on this weekend. What the heck's going on with EA Play? Maybe just a quick report on the stuff that is there. Hopefully by, yeah, Sunday or Monday, I will have already played Jedi Fallen Order at E3. Please, I'm hoping. I'm guessing that's going to be like the big EA game. So yeah, I don't know. We're gonna iron that out. And one thing that I want to do this year that we didn't do last year or did a really poor job of is I'm excited about. Maybe I can talk about this. I talked about this at the top. But now that Days Gone is done, and I don't plan to be reviewing anything, I don't think, for the month of May. I think Dragon Quest Builders 2 in July is like my next big review, next big, huge game that I'm looking forward to. And I'm just going to be streaming and playing a bunch of Dreams. But I'm looking forward to putting together a fancy promo for our E3 coverage. Looking forward to putting a promo also together for the studio for Easy Allies. I think we were definitely past that point of having all of our shows in order. All of our got to make sure to use clips where the lights are working in the studio and then everything's fine. But yeah, I think we are a little promo deficient at Easy Allies, and I kind of had that epiphany recently where I was like, oh, because I kept thinking like I don't feel we're communicating to our audience. Because slow to get updates on the studio. We've had some shows go on hiatus, and so it seems like a little bit. We dropped patrons because we had our top mega sponsors and a couple of like other sponsors take off, Mango and some other people that've been around for a while. And so I was like, how can we reinvigorate this without just doing more shows, which we are doing. We're doing, It's Easy to Like Anime, which is our post-episode analysis of One Punch Man Season 2. We're also doing, a somewhat unscheduled, quick and dirty analysis of Game of Thrones as well with Damiani and myself. So we are doing more than we typically would have if we had not been in the studio and been in the garage at this point, I believe. But at the same time, I think it'd be nice to... the Easy promo is long overdue. Yeah, I just think it's nice to make videos explaining to people what's going on. So, hey, Alex Pisa, there's another way to promote the brand of Easy Allies. Phil H. Last week, there were questions regarding the Allies not being in the studio 24/7. I'm fine with this, knowing that you all live in LA and your fuel for the month has got to be pretty expensive. Just finishing up Days Gone, all I can think about is fuel being expensive. Could you please give some more examples of how things like remote working could save all of the Allies money for better content in the future? Sure. Well, one of the major things, think about me in Days Gone. I'm close to the studio, probably closer than most of the Allies, and I'm still, playing Days Gone here. I'm still getting up and, playing Days Gone until 3, 4 in the morning, and then going to bed right away because my bed's right over there. And it's in another room, but it's on the premises. And so I think that's it when you think of, the work that Ben has to do getting ready for Frame Trap, the work that anybody does, whether they're previewing or reviewing a game. We have a port report coming up for Final Fantasy X from Michael Damiani, where he talks about everything, the Vita, the PS4, PC, Switch, like all the different versions of this game. And if you're looking for what version should you get? So that's not something that needs to be done in a studio. That's not a collaboration. And I think that's the divide that started with Easy Allies production-wise, where we realized, okay, we have this set group of stuff that can only happen in the studio, and then this group of stuff that can really happen anywhere. Sometimes I'll go in and, Kyle will show up to do a Tabletop Escapades or something, and then he'll take that time between an afternoon shoot and the podcast to work on the podcast, and so he'll be in the studio doing that, but that's still something that he could easily do at home. And I think one of the other things that... when people were talking about like what does your week look like, and it's tough to pick a certain day and classify that as a typical day in Easy Allies, or even a week or month, because obviously June or December look nothing like any of the other months out of the year, because that's E3 and the holidays. January doesn't look like anything because we're doing anticipating stuff that's going to happen at the end of the year. We're doing Game of the Year awards in January. September, October, November are unlike any months out of the year, because it is just crazy review season. That's like when we're just doing one big blockbuster game after another. But something to keep in mind when you talk about, where do those words come from? Us doing work at home. And there's one thing that I always take for granted, that an hour will go by and they'll be like, okay, wait, I got to get ready to go to the gym, or I got to get ready to go to the office, or I got to get ready to take a shower and then work on some other thing. And I'll think, what have I been doing for 45 minutes? And I've just been in Slack. I've just been in, we use Slack to communicate off-site. And Bloodworth and I, spend at least 2 hours every day in Slack just talking to each other, just trying to figure stuff out, updating each other on things that are happening. Him letting me know when VO scripts are coming in, me letting him know, decisions that have been made on other projects, and So yeah, there's just a lot of conversation that happens, and yeah, maybe out of all of that conversation, maybe like 10% of it isn't necessarily specifically focused on Easy Allies stuff, but it is always rough to get the allies together. And when we first were about to shoot something like Group Stream, and it's just like, okay. Like, I know people are excited to talk about games they're working on and excited to talk about projects and stuff, but like, we have a shoot that we're about to do. And so we need to stop the chatter and shoot the podcast or start the group stream or whatever. And so it's nice to get some of these, bigger headlines or bigger announcements that happen. It's nice to get at least a small little conversation going on social media, so then we know, okay, is this something that we should be talking about on the podcast? Is this something we should talk about on Frame Trap? Is this something we should talk about on Friend Code? Is this something that we want to avoid spoilers, or how does this necessarily relate to us? Is this an Easy Allies news story, or is this something that people will expect to see other entities talk about or whatever? It's just a lot going on Slack, a lot of conversations, and I think maybe what you might start to see a slow evolution of the culture shifting from some of these conversations happening more in the studio, because more in general is happening in the studio. Easy Allies might evolve into a 24/7 studio thing, maybe not, actually all 9 of the guys that you are used to being in the studio all the time, but, bringing in other employees, bringing other people that are there in the studio doing work for whatever reason. So it might change in the future. I just think we discovered Slack as this as an entity that could make Easy Allies function. It's like this is the way. I remember before Easy Allies was even called Easy Allies, we had the Slack account, and I'm up in San Francisco, and we're talking about, what are we going to call it? How is Patreon going to work? I met with Patreon that week, to talk about kind of what our plans were. And, even before the shows happened, even before we were shooting any of our shows, for the first episode of the Easy Allies podcast, we were on Slack. We were getting used to that culture and that workflow. And it changed a lot from Defy. I think we were dependent on Viacom and Defy to provide resources for us to do what we do. And like I said, there's just a lot of reasons Defy would ring the dinner bell and we'd all have to be there in the studio. And so now that doesn't necessarily happen. Even when we have meetings once a month, we can do that just on camera. We can do that like you're watching the Q&A. So it's interesting, and apologies if I haven't really had. I think I kind of ramble almost every single time I try to answer this question, because it is tough. It's tough to define our work schedule because, like I said, it's constantly changing. And even last Monday, I didn't know that this Monday, right after Cup of Jones, I would be getting in my car and driving to the studio and talking about Game of Thrones. So things change a lot. Brendan Schmidt, has there been any thought of potentially using different areas of the studio for some different podcast shows you produce on a regular basis? Most of the shows seem to be done in the main studio area with the lights and desk, and while it's cool to see the different colors used on each show, it seems like too much is being done in this one space. It's a great space, but it feels like it's being used for pretty much every piece of content other than the group streams. I wonder if having a different backdrop or doing things in a different area, maybe the brick background, would help mix things up and give shows a greater identity. Yes, it would. And yes, that could benefit us. 2 major things that you need to consider. One, those other rooms sound terrible. So the brick background, the closest one that we could use, the office has white walls and the library has white walls. And so the only other room is, other than the control room, which you do see. Keep in mind that, we haven't been switching to that lately on the podcast, but when we, do have somebody on that desk, you do see that room as well. So it would really just be the green room, and there's absolutely no soundproofing in the green room at all. Go back and watch the first, we did an easy update before we moved into the studio, where I sat down with Ian and we talked for a while, and you can get a sense of how fun that room sounds. And you can go back and watch interviews that German Efficiency did when we moved into the studio, and he kind of set up camp on that couch in the green room, and we talked about stuff in there, and it's very echoey. So yeah, things are not lit, things are not soundproofed in other rooms, and one of the other things you have to consider is that when we move the quality of the shows up, granted we have flickering lights, but when we create that room, create that space, and build it to accommodate multiple shows, the idea of picking everything up and moving it into another space and then moving it back for something is like anti-studio. It's like the opposite of the mantra. our goals for being in that new space is that let's not have to move anything. That's why we split into a group stream space and a streaming space, which we do. We do the Q&A. We do the community showcase in there. We do, again, our streams, but we do stream a lot, and we have shows at Easy Allies that do take place in that room. Again, we have our It's Easy to Like Anime and the Game of Thrones reactions that will be done in that space as well, along with our reactions to other things. So it's not just Tuesday nights where we go in there. But yeah, it's just the idea of moving something into another room is not where we're at right now with that space. But if you go back and look at even just the Game Trailers office, when we added Thanks for Playing, which was a short-lived podcast that we had back at Game Trailers, but we did utilize other people's offices and move around, and I think it would be fun to maybe not create a show that's in another space, but maybe having shows like Hubris Syndrome or Easy Update, or even like segments, parts of the podcast, or just one-off things to maybe be shot in another room. And I'm sure just over time, as we did with Thanks for Playing with Game Trailers, I think just over time in the studio, we're going to get curious and creative. And one of these days, we're going to get creative and just start using other parts of the space, because, using the hallway for a reason, shooting a show in the bathroom, you never know. Yeah, I think I would do it because it seemed to fit the style of something else that we were doing, but I don't feel a need to necessarily shake things up yet. I know we're constantly on the same space and we're just shifting colors, but I don't beat myself too much about that as far as drastic changes needing to come soon to fix that. Have we had Tabletop in the studio yet? Yes. Tabletop is currently on hiatus, but there have been several episodes shot in the studio. Justin Asseltine, as someone who is 3 hours ahead of Easy Allies and who works nights, I can very rarely watch content live. For most videos, I have the option of going back and watching the videos on Twitch or YouTube. But which is more beneficial to Easy Allies? Is the monetization different enough on each service that the late views would be better watching on one service or the other? Or is the effect so small as to make one specific viewing irrelevant? It's pretty irrelevant. If you really want to get into the minutia, you could say that it's nice to get those views on YouTube because then it bulks up the channel. It's nice to get more subscribers on youtube.com/EasyAlliesPlays, which is our second YouTube channel. But we're not really competitive with that channel. I don't see those numbers ever blowing up to the numbers that the 200,000 plus that we currently have on our main channel. And so I think it's nice to, it's not nice. I think it's, we're kind of not fighting a losing battle. I keep putting words in my head that I don't like. I just think I think hunting for a massive subscriber count on Easy Allies Plays is not a smart battle to be fighting. But better numbers on YouTube is always a good thing. So yeah, I would say tentatively YouTube, but certainly if one is more convenient for you than the other, and if you're used to one over the other, it's not that big of a deal. On a previous, Matt Brookbank, on a previous Cup of Jones, I commented that polls would be a fun $2 patron reward, and the poll results could be featured in one or multiple podcasts. Well, in addition to being featured on podcasts, I really enjoyed Mysterious Monsters and wanted to bring back up the poll suggestion as a mid-game bonus Family Feud type question between rounds. We polled 2,000 people, your patrons. Which answer was the most popular to this question kind of thing? Polls are fun. Polls are fun. That would be interesting. What is interesting also? Blah, crud in my throat. I don't know where that came from. Very sniffly and just gross today. I'm just generally gross today. It's been interesting how many suggestions people have had for improving Mysterious Monsters. And it's interesting to me as somebody who's watched the production of that show, because there are so many steps. We're going to have even more Mysterious Monsters, suggestions coming up. There's so many steps involved in creating an episode of Mysterious Monsters. And Mysterious Monsters is so different, I think, than almost any game show I've ever seen. And so and we did it, it used to be a Patreon goal, but we took the Patreon goal and then just did the episode anyway. And it's funny to be like, you should add this. And it's like, that's a complicated show. That's a hard show to put together. And so it's interesting 2 episodes in where people are like, totally change the format. And we're like, we probably won't. We're probably going to produce about 10 episodes of Mysterious Monsters looking exactly the way that you see it right now. And then maybe in season 2 or in 2020, we will be looking for ways to change up Mysterious Monsters. I don't know if episode 4 is the time to completely change the way Mysterious Monsters is built. But I love the suggestions for Mysterious Monsters. And the other thing you have to consider is that I have as much power over Mysterious Monsters as I do over Kyle's return to the final bossman here at Easy Allies, because it's 120% Michael Huber, Jason Wishnov, and Ian Hink's show. So if I say, hey, they said this on Cup of Jones, and Ian's like, no, I'll be like, oh, okay. Because they very much, it's not that like I won't be able to like put my foot down and make a stern suggestion, or that I don't have as much of an equal vote as the rest of the allies. It's just their show, and definitely if those three people were not working on it, that show would not have happened. So, John White, on a particular slow day at work, blow my nose. It's just time. There we go. John White, on a particularly slow day at work, I had the idea that was borderline fan fiction and so ludicrous, I decided to not mention it. But with the recent news that you guys could be collaborating with Max Dude for a future Frame Trap, I just have to suggest it. Excuse me. I am bringing this up now just to plant the seed of a possibility, as I know the logistics would be something to behold. So please believe me when I say I know this is a lot. Easy A, 2020, a trip to Vegas to cover EVO. In an effort to keep this as concise as possible, there's the bare bones proposal. EVO usually takes place in August, so this would essentially become Easy Livin' Hits the Road. You guys rent a few vans, make a road trip, and rent a property off the strip for an extended weekend around EVO. Off the strip? Off the strip? In lieu of the 24-hour streams, you could shoot shows during the day. Don goes to the Pinball Hall of Fame, an easy update from the inside the arena, Huber on the street, etc. In the evening, you could hold normal group streams leading up to the grand final Sunday, where you could host a watch-along. To help fund the trip, you could hold a Road to EVO fundraiser after E3 this June or July and sell a sponsor slot for the entire event like past Easy Livins. I know this would not exactly be cheap, but I think it also falls into the range of plausible with some help. Lastly, and this is definitely the cherry on top, would be campaigning for Ben to enter EVO. He could hold dojo streams leading up to the event, playing his game of choice, and Ian could film his match in pools and hopefully his Cinderella story run to EVO champion. I understand this idea is a lot. It's not. There's a lot going on, but it's not a lot when you consider the type of stuff we could pull off. I'm simply offering it as a real milestone type item for Easy A to push for in year 5. Year 4. We're in year 4. From a pure business standpoint, I think it could bring a lot of eyes to Easy A, especially from the FGC, meaning we're not doing it this August and we do it in year 5. Okay. Community, as well as lots of entertainment value for all the fans. Yeah, totally. Again, just the whole idea of Easy A on the road is something that, we'll definitely be building up to in terms of how much of something that could we afford? How much of something of that idea would need to come from our community? What would that look like? What would it be called? Over what time would that stretch? So something that we most likely won't be spending money on or setting up for in 2019. But I'm sure before that finally happens, I will get tons of suggestions being like travel. We're just trying to spend money on equipment and shows right now. Travel would be really great. And I think a couple allies might be at EVO. They're interested in going. I don't know like how much coverage we're going to do of EVO, but we might have 1 or 2 people there. Sean, how would you feel about moving Blood's episode list of Patreon exclusive shows from your forum to a premium shows tab on your website? Building off a question from last week, this seems like another way to highlight these shows, especially for those of us who avoid checking out Patreon too often because it's a slow, clunky mess of a website. Yes, I put that in takeaways. I was going to tell Blood about that, but Blood is not. Blood had a busy weekend. It was Easter weekend. Blood's all day Saturday and Sunday was working on shows and stuff like that at his church. And so he might just be crashing this morning. He's got a Days Gone script to read, so Blood's busy. But yeah, takeaway. Nathan25, a comment about a bonus solo round of Mysterious Monsters got me thinking that this awesome game show is missing one thing: prizes. It's not a prize enough to be on Mysterious Monsters? Not saying you should start offering prizes, but how would you and the allies feel about a high score table to record winners with their amount of gold? This way you're at least competing to get on top of the tables and associated bragging rights. Also hoping for an April Fool's episode one day where Don plays Huber and Huber plays Don as a contestant. That's a wonderful idea. Gold leaderboard on Mysterious Monsters. I didn't write that one down before, but I love it. I use Google Docs right now for this doc that I write up every week, and I keep hitting like command save. It's like, that's not how the internet works, Jones. Welcome to the internet. Nicholas Bobby. At some point in the future, if EZA does hire a permanent employee who isn't a part owner like the rest of you, what challenges do you think this might present? For example, if I were up for such a job, the pitch of, okay, so you're the only employee and you have 9 bosses would probably ward me away no matter how chill you guys are. Yeah, there are 9 equal partners to Easy Allies, to the business. So yeah, the challenge would be, which I think is a huge challenge, because we faced that at Game Trailers. When we were at Game Trailers, I was the editor-in-chief, Blood was managing editor. I mean, we have the same positions here, technically. And then everybody else was either an editor or, producer. And I was in charge of all the employees. So I was even in charge of Blood. And so, whereas, all of us could meet to kind of talk about what our content would be like. And then now, their position has elevated in that we are all equal partners. So all 9 of us can vote individually on any changes we want to make to the business itself. I think we tend to stay away from content stuff because it's not our shows, And so if Ian wants to do something with Easy Update, I'm like, cool. I can't wait to see the episode. Great. Because that's his show. That's not only what he is responsible for in terms of entertaining our community, but what he's responsible for in showing that, like, I still am working for this company. I'm still producing stuff for everybody. So we were all tied to some kind of features, and we don't have like a check card where we, a timestamp, a time card, I guess. Yeah, we don't have time cards. And so that's how we know, that's how we can check in with everybody. Obviously meetings as well in the group stream. But if we were to have that extra employee, I believe it would be me. I can't confirm that 100%, but one of us would be responsible for us communicating with that person. So the trick would be to not have Ian or Ben or, Blood or somebody just kind of pulling them aside and be like, hey, can you do a favor for me? It's like, none of that. If you have anything for that person to do, you talk to me. And then I will talk to that person, and then I will figure out that person's schedule and what they can do. But yeah, we don't want to have tons of cooks in the kitchen, because I've been there before. I've had multiple bosses. I've worked on video projects before where someone will come in and tell me to do something, and then someone will come in and tell me to do something opposite. And I'm like, wait, whoa, what do I do? Who do I listen to? I need to have the buck has to stop somewhere. And hopefully the buck will either stop with me or with somebody else, but that'll be a very specific person that will manage that employee. What a dream. Straw Hat Ninja, you guys did a great job reacting to the Joker trailer. Everybody keeps saying the Joker trailer. And I think, God, that was like last month. Why the Joker? Has there been a new Joker trailer? And like, oh, Smash Brothers. That Joker trailer that Nintendo randomly dropped. You guys were fortunate that it dropped in the middle of an already scheduled group stream, that Easy Allies magic. My question is, if that didn't happen, how would have you been able to react to it? Nintendo seems to like to randomly drop stuff lately. So how does Easy Allies adjust to that? Do you have a reaction crew on standby? We can do solo reaction streams. I did solo reaction streams to the Red Dead Redemption 2 trailers. We usually got about a 48-hour gap on that. And certainly people could have joined me for that, but that was something I could have easily done. Damiani could have potentially done, or Ben could have done a solo reaction, because the two of them are very, very much paying attention to all of the updates coming to Super Smash Brothers. And we've talked about doing this in the past. I think the ship's kind of sailed somewhat on a lot of these things, and it's or at least that feeling is so prevalent that it's tough to think about coming in and doing something after the fact. But there is the possibility that if something like that were to drop, all of us would check in with each other and be like, did anybody actually watch it? And if none of us had watched it yet, okay, nobody watch it. We're going to wait until we get into the studio, and then we can record this. And so, our reactions might be like 2 or 3 days late, but, people might still be in the market for that, curious to see how other channels reacted. And then we would get together, and it wouldn't be live. It would be recorded, but you would be seeing the first reaction in the actual video. So as long as we can preserve that, we can maybe do that in the future. But even if you get 12 hours past an announcement, let alone 24 or 48, it just feels like no one's going to care if we do that. So we might, as our production schedule ramps up and as we have more time to do more things, that's something we might consider doing in the future. There's lots of people in our community that are frustrated that we don't react to absolutely everything. Dale Payne, is it possible to get any audio-only version of the monthly Q&A that gets posted to YouTube added to the Easy Allies early editions page? I'm mainly a focused podcast listener and would love for an opportunity to listen to those at work. Yeah, apologies, Dale. All of our shows are on a post-by-post basis when it comes to audio versions. They're all produced by separate allies, and I have communicated to the allies on several occasions, hey, people would love audio versions of everything, but if we did audio versions of everything the way the Patreon is currently built, we would have like twice as many posts. And so some people use discretion in terms of what, and just in terms of their schedule, just kind of what they're, what they have time to do or what they're willing to fit into the production time for any given show. But I believe I have passed on that note before, and I will pass it on again. Sven Van Latham, have you guys ever thought of changing the frequency of a show or podcast as a tier instead of adding new ones? For example, a weekly frame trap and friend code at 58K. This is just an example, of course, but you get the idea. And or you could also add stuff as exclusives. For example, $5 and up gets you a weekly frame trap or friend code or bi-weekly top 10, etc. Again, just examples. Instead of adding new shows at higher tiers, why not just give us more of what we love? Yeah, it's a fun idea. I think when we conceptualize a show, it's more geared toward, okay, what can we do? What are we willing to produce? And then what monetarily makes sense for that goal as an incentive for our patrons. And so if you were to up the frequency of something, a lot of times it would fly in the face of the whole concept of doing that show. Like a countdown is not just the idea of producing the countdown, meaning writing the scripts and getting the footage and delivering that, and then Ian putting those videos together. But it's the concept of thinking of countdowns and picking those lists. Sometimes lists take 15 minutes to figure out. Sometimes, we put the rough list together of the top 10 Game Boy games very quickly, and then number 1, number 2, Tetris versus Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Red and Blue took like an hour. It was a very, very long, crazy discussion that Kyle Bossman was at the center of, and so some of these shows just logistically can't be done in lesser time. So it's not a matter of us looking in the wrong places for money or for places to go to the Patreon. But that is an interesting idea, and I don't think it's something that has come up specifically. It might be worth looking at all of our shows and seeing what, if anything, fits into that classification of something that we can maybe do at a greater frequency than we do right now. But I know that for Frame Trap and Friend Code, there's just not, I don't know if there's enough Nintendo specific news to fill an entire Friend Code podcast weekly. And I also know even moving from, even doing Frame Trap every 2 weeks, it can get kind of dicey where, I'll come on Frame Trap sometimes. I was on Frame Trap 2 times in a row, so it was a little tricky about I don't really have anything to talk about. I ended up talking about Star Wars because I'm like, that's kind of where my head is at right now. I played a lot more Division 2, but I already talked about the Division 2. And so sometimes I'll be on Frame Trap and Ben will ask what I've been playing, and I'll tell him, and he's like, oh, we talked about all of those things last week. We can still get your impressions on them, but it won't be the deep dive that we did last week. We won't spend as much time talking about it. And so if we did Frame Trap every single week, I think some weeks you would have people being like, I'm still playing the stuff I played last week, or I was on a frame trap so recently, like I've been working on Mysterious Monsters, or I've been working on, an event that we have coming up, or, E3 is coming up soon. And so there's just not a lot that I've been playing, or I'm reviewing a game that's under embargo, so I can't even say that I have it. And so, again, just the nature of some of these shows, I don't know if they lend to weekly, but it's a fun idea. Something to think about as we hunt for those juicy 56, 57, 58, 59, 60K goals. Connor Egan, daily. Every Easy Ally show is daily. Can you imagine? Have you ever heard the Connor Egan? It's a personal question, but I can throw this aside really quickly. Connor Egan, have you heard the theory that Jar Jar was originally intended to be a Sith, but this was scrapped after episode 1 due to fans hating him, thus explaining the out-of-nowhere introduction to Count Dooku? If you haven't, there's a 1-hour YouTube video by Lockstin explaining the theory. It sounded completely ridiculous to me at first, but then I watched the video and was convinced. Either way, curious to hear your thoughts. Phantom Menace is a fantastic film. Phantom Menace is not a fantastic film. I don't believe Jar Jar was intended to be a Sith. I don't think Lucas is that clever. I think Lucas has fun ideas, but I don't think that was an idea he had and then couldn't do, and then that's why Jar Jar's bad. or that's why Jar Jar doesn't necessarily work. I think he was just confused in terms of producing those prequels. Sorry. Brian Denew. Hey, is Ian okay? We did it. We made it. I don't know how long it's been. We made it a certain amount of time without somebody specifically asking, like, hey, what's going on with Ian? If you haven't noticed, Ian has been out of town for quite a while. Ian went out of town and then came back, and then he went out of town again. Ian shall return. I do not know the specific schedule of when Ian's again going to be on Tabletop Escapades or when he's going to be back on the podcast. I miss him dearly because Ian produces a lot of things here in the studio, and there's like some upgrades and improvements to the studio that we're holding back a little bit until Ian gets back. Ian is working on Ian stuff. It's tricky because, and this has actually been interesting, something we've been talking about internally at Easy Allies, just, how Easy Allies handles work commitments, how Easy Allies handles personal events, how Easy Allies handles all sorts of crazy things that a business has to deal with in terms of employees doing other stuff other than working for the company, or working directly on stuff for the company. And it's kind of, it's like there's no like rule set for like, oh yeah, how do we handle that? How do we do that? The nice thing about Easy Allies is we all really like each other, and we all have a tremendous amount of patience for each other, as you can imagine is required from working with 8 other people in a garage or in a studio. And Ian's just working on other stuff, and Ian just needs the time to work on those things. And it's just not me, Brandon Jones, and Michael Damiani and Daniel Bloodworth are not the people to communicate the stuff that Ian is doing to our audience. And so when stuff like this happens, for whatever myriad of reasons, it's just always nice for an ally to be like, hey, I'm going to step away from Easy Allies for a little bit. And we're like, great, we'll see you when you come back. And I think in terms of how shows are produced, like Tabletop Escapades going on hiatus, or Easy Update changing, format, as you probably been aware of the last couple of weeks, the podcast changing because we don't have somebody on the switcher that can show off all of our fancy cameras, that this speaks to, we're challenging our Patreon in a way. We're challenging our audience, not always in the way that you would like to, which is, hey, we asked you to help us support us. We could produce something. We're not going to be producing that either at all or in the way that you expect or in the way that you are used to. We would still enjoy your support, and your support can still go toward making Easy Allies the best it can be, and just naturally seeing, obviously, what'll happen, confusion that'll happen in the audience or frustration over things changing. I think it's just a natural, not only growing in the company, but just kind of a way to look at the Patreon in terms of, if for example, if we cancel a show and some people say, okay, I'm going to drop my sponsorship because that's my favorite show, I think you guys should be producing it. That person's not wrong. It's like, oh, okay, great. Like, then we know what our business can, withstand in terms of changing things or having things go on hiatus or having employees, work on other projects for a certain amount of time. So, I feel bad on your half, to again be playing that up so that, like, if Ian comes back in the podcast, he's going to have some huge crazy announcement or some big crazy thing. Doesn't mean that at all. And so apologies if not talking about it or talking about it in the way that I am like builds it up to anything that it is actually not. But I think for 3 years of operation, we've done a pretty good job actually of having all of the allies generally present at all times and not taking extended leaves of absence. But sometimes that needs to happen. But Ian himself is doing quite well. Again, we have a meeting this week. He'll be there. He's going to, he's on the Q&A. He's going to be, he edited this month. He's doing Easy Update episodes. He edited this month's countdown. He's cut a bunch of reviews lately. He cut at least 1 or 2 reviews last week while I was working on Days Gone. So a big thanks to Ian and Don for picking up a lot of those review edits. So we're still keeping them working. Excuse me. Happy gaming. I watch a great deal of EZA content, but very rarely do I ever watch it on my computer. I'll watch new shows on the bus or typically on my television. This is something I wanted to bring up because the mobile application of Patreon, to my knowledge, has no way of allowing a patron to easily find the exclusive shows that have been released. I did a little research and I could be in the wrong, but to my knowledge, to find on the desktop website, there is a button for patron exclusive shows. Users can click on this to find the previous episodes of And For That Reason, Fancy 15, etc. However, if you were to go into the Patreon mobile application, information. The only way to access these shows is to scroll back as far as it was released chronologically. I'm curious if it would be possible or how difficult it would be to create an easy link for patrons on the Easy Allies website for patron-exclusive shows. This will allow more people to revisit older content regardless of the platform they are viewing the said show on. It could just be a list of hyperlinks for the Patreon post as well, which could still allow them to be locked behind the Patreon paywall. This way, regardless of the platform you're trying to watch Easy Allies shows on or where you're trying to watch it, there's a guaranteed portal to access the shows so long as you are at the tier. Yeah. Totally. Patreon exclusive shows link for mobile users. Thing. Cool. Happy Gaming, working hard to make Easy Allies better. Just every time, all those comments are like, all right, fix this now. I'm like, oh, okay. Just one of those. It's interesting to have those patrons specifically that are just like, there's got to be a squeaky wheel somewhere. There it is. G-Finger. Free advice from your friendly neighborhood digital strategist. Mysterious Monsters has the phrase RPG trivia game show within its title. To the uninformed, its meaning comes across as a trivia game show with RPG elements, but instead, not as a trivia game show with RPG elements, but instead a game show exclusively dealing with RPG trivia. That schism between user intent and final product can cause some nasty engagement metrics like sky-high bounce rate. The show can be an excellent way to gain new viewers, so clarity and clickability is key. Can't argue with that. Yeah, I've already passed on that note. Rammer, I've noticed Easy A hasn't done many unboxing videos. I unboxed today on this show. I unboxed a box. I opened a box, at least. I believe the last one that comes up to mind is the unboxing of the Switch system at launch. Recently, I saw some videos pop up showing the new collector's edition of Mortal Kombat 11. Did your business receive a copy in advance? Have you ever thought of adding these videos more often than you receive products like this in advance? I know it may not be the most engaging content, but it seems like easy production and comparably pulls good viewership numbers in other channels. Yeah. It's funny. And I'll try to say this in a way that's not like, I don't know, insulting or cocky, but like, I think we're too selfish for this. Because when we get collector's editions, a lot of times people need to play those games. Like, it's like, oh, really? We got a physical copy of that? And Blood or Ben or Summit or me or, it's like with Dawn in this case, is Dawn's like, oh man, can I have that? So I'm going to bring that to the office tomorrow, or I'm heading out the door right now to go do the Game of Thrones thing. So I'll bring that over there so he can have that when he comes and picks that up. So like, if I was to shoot an unboxing video by myself, I necessarily wouldn't be that into Mortal Kombat 11. And, Ben would maybe be more interested with Dawn, but they're both working on things. And then if we shoot it on Tuesday, it's like, long story short, we just need to get at those things that are in there. Like, we need to okay, well, this thing is cool and we'll maybe show this off, but we need the game. We need that code. I already opened it up because the collector's edition came with the combat code, which had all the DLC characters. Ben was reviewing it. So Ben's like, I'd like to check those DLC characters out to be able to talk about them. So I had to sift through the box to find that code and then hand that over. So the actual unboxing almost happens immediately because we need to know what's in there to know what we can do editorial wise. Because first and foremost, we're just always focused on the coverage of the game itself. So I think unboxing videos would have to be a change in the culture here at Easy A. That would be a strange thing to do. That would be something that Michael Damiani very much wanted to do that because it was a new console with the Switch, so he reached out to me and I was here, so I'm like, well, I'll be here because I'll be at my house, and so. That was very easy to do. But yeah, you're not wrong. I think it was the last and maybe only time Easy Allies has ever done an unboxing video. And I'm not saying they don't earn, and I'm not saying they wouldn't be relatively easy because we don't have to write a script for it, but the actual meeting and production of that is unusual for us as a group. It's not something that we do a lot, and so I think it would be difficult for that to move to the forefront of our mind doing unboxing videos. Unboxing videos always come off as clickbaity, says Mike Wears Prada in chat. Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff that we do. So do reactions. But could be fun. KY79. Have you guys ever considered abolishing the current review scoring system here in Easy A? No. I personally find numerical scoring systems for reviews completely pointless, as there is absolutely no mathematical calculation involved. It's rough, but there is math. It's just the reviewer trying to convert their personal thoughts into numbers, and there's almost zero consistency there. I much prefer something alongside Game Explain's rating system. Meh, I liked it, loved it, etc. That's still there's math there. I don't know what the et cetera is. Sounds like maybe there's 4. If there's 4, that's 25%. If there's 5, that's 20. And so there's still math there, as that feels a lot more personal and is harder to draw any unnecessary comparisons between different reviews. Numerical scoring has always felt to me like an easy way to bring attention, but that clearly isn't the priority here in Easy A. We definitely want to bring attention to Easy A, so that is a major priority, as you guys aren't afraid to take your time and not rush reviews. Just curious about your thoughts on the matter. Yeah, I like scores. I think we talked about scores recently. I think I did like a whole editorial on scores. At least we had a big conversation about it when we moved from the star system to our current 20-point system. And I like scores because I know a lot of people are like have like a freedom from scores, and I can't refute that. Like if you're like, I think scores are pointless, I don't need scores, I don't trust scores, I don't appreciate them, I don't see value in them, I think that's ridiculous. I don't know how you would come at that. I know that back at Game Traders, we had the 100-point system, and I know a lot of people were like, really, 8.7? Like, what does that mean? And it's like, well, it means something to me. I can arrive at that. I know that some people say it's like a completely arbitrary, like, what does an 8 mean? And it's like, I definitely wrestled with what I was going to score Days Gone in relation to a lot of other things that we've scored recently. So like it has value that way, where I look at other things that we at Easy Allies have scored and given different names, and I think about how much I enjoyed those games, or given scores, sorry. And I think about, okay, well, if I enjoyed this game that much and this game not as much, then that's a lower score, but by how much would that be lowered? I agree that scores are kind of like blunt objects, like I understand when you're like it doesn't really mean anything, there's no consistency, and I agree that there's not like it's not like calculus. Like again, you're not going to find there's not going to be a straight line kind of connecting all of or a chart that just kind of makes everything so clear that I can tell exactly what any one person is going to score it. Obviously, when you have 6 different people with an editorial opinion that are collectively throwing scores at our global Metacritic or whatever, the Easy Allies Metacritic, it is not a perfect system, but it is a challenging one, and I guess I do enjoy that challenge. That it is having scored games for this long. It is something that I can definitely, get a sense a couple hours into a game, and then a couple hours later, like how a game is evolving, and score wise, how I want to communicate that to an audience. But I had kind of do like a little mini editorial here. I had kind of an interesting thought about scores the other day, and that was, I can't remember what game specifically the article was referencing, but I was reading an article recently. It was most likely a Jason Schreier Kotaku blowout, and they referenced that some game didn't review well. They said, "Oh, at the time, this game was universally panned. Everyone didn't like it. This franchise didn't start well, or this game was reviewed poorly." And I wonder if like, say tomorrow, everyone abolished review scores. They were just gone. Like not even the meh and accept and like you were saying from Game Explain, like even just having little sections of just buy it or don't buy, those are gone too. It's literally just opinions. It's just all words. It's all just general vibe of you just like you don't need to know the score. You just need to know kind of what they thought about it. Historically, I think it would be harder to think, it would be like, oh yeah, that movie was panned, or oh yeah, that game, people didn't like that game. And like, really? I read a review where they liked it, and you're like, well, yeah, but this one outlet didn't like it, and this other outlet, their review was there were some paragraphs that were positive or lower, versus going to Metacritic and being like, boom, people didn't like it. And I know it's frustrating, again, with Rotten Tomatoes, people are like, you can review bomb stuff, and a lot of filmmakers are very frustrated with the Rotten Tomatoes meter. But at the same time, I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm not someone who, I don't get the scoops. I don't like to, that's just not kind of where my talents lie. That's not where my hunger lies. That's not something I've seen in this industry and been like, yes, I want to do that. So I don't really feel like I'm affecting change in the way that probably needs to be done in terms of paying people enough money or treating them fairly or having them not break their backs over games or, having, projects and companies be as diverse as possible and as accepting of as many people as possible. Like all the positive influences that we want to see, having reviewers be honest, having, all of these things that you see, shaken up when, these like bombshell these bombshell, news updates are posted. And so review scores are kind of one of my ways to do that. It's like I score trailers, but I don't think people care. Like, I don't think companies are going to be changing how they produce trailers off of the various trailer shows that I've done over the years. But I think if we don't like a game, if we get a Crackdown 3, if we get a Fallout 76 and we go, no, this sucks. Like, don't do this. This didn't work. Whatever you had in mind for this game, ineffective. I think if we don't have a review score, it kind of takes some of our makes that opinion less impactful. It makes it easier for people to avoid that stuff. Just kind of like, oh, I don't know, the reviews are good. You can still make what am I thinking of? A trailer that's a reaction trailer, but a reviews trailer. It's like the trailer quotes in it, basically. I'm trying to think. Accolades is the common term. An accolades trailer. Wow, look at all these wonderful people thought of our game. And you take little lines from reviews. Even for games that were reviewed poorly, I could easily make one of those trailers from just random quotes where just like, combat is fun. It's like, combat is fun. There we go. Combat is fun. And so I just I like the weight that a score has. I like that, like I said, the potential impact that a score has, and I feel that we lose that if we were to not have a scoring system. And again, I think when you look at any one specific game when you're scoring something, I think it's easy to figure out a cozier, more a mass appealing review system, and then you're done, and then you figure that out. But then you get 10 games later, and you start to get confused because you're like, oh, well, I'm going to tell you to buy this. I'm going to give you like the buy it rank. And 5 months ago, I also gave this the buy it rank. And this one game is much better than this other game. Game B is better than game A. And what a lot of people say is like, just communicate that in the script. Well, if you go back and look at a lot of YouTube comments, if you see a lot of comments that have been brought up to me on my reviews on Cup of Jones, like a lot of people don't appreciate the minutia of language. Like they don't appreciate you specifically choosing words to address an issue. If you talk about something, too much or not enough. So a lot of people sometimes when you try to let the words speak for themselves, they don't. And so I hear that from a lot of people. They're like, the review itself should be the score. You don't necessarily need a score. I think that I would definitely be missing something, not only with reviews in general, but with Easy Allies reviews, which are a evolution of the Game Trailers format, which is a format that I came up with in 2005. So this is my 14th year of making these video reviews, and it would take a tremendous amount of convincing for me to throw scores out the window. The combat is fun for God of War. Was that our quote? Says Kevlar Gorilla. That's nearly identical to the Easy Allies accolade quote for God of War. Red Sky, what are the chances of seeing board games / card games played more regularly on streams and shows? Group streams like the Pokemon TCG tournaments or easy update episodes like the most recent one made me think about how great it would be to see some new games played to the studio. Also, do you have any favorite board games or card games you like to go to for parties and group settings? Yeah, I actually really like Swords, Ian's card game, not to hawk something that was produced internally here, not at Easy Allies, but with one of our allies specifically. That is his own game. That's not an Easy Allies product. I also like Five Crowns. I don't know if you ever played Five Crowns. It's a very fun card game. There's also a card game called Magic that I like, that I play sometimes. Yeah, the problem with like you said the magic word, group streams. So like it would have to be a Tuesday night thing. We've talked for a long time about doing some kind of Magic tournament or Magic draft, whether that's just something we do in the office or something that we actually shoot. We've been talking about that for a long time. But I think the group nature of what you described is why it's tricky for that to happen. We've long floated around the idea of doing a second group stream, having like another day of the week that specifically set for us to get together and play something else. And it's just a lot to ask multiple people to be in attendance for stuff. Outside of the group stream, we also have the Q&A, which is admittedly is done from home, but everybody still needs to be present for. We have tabletop, which people need to be around for. We have the podcasts, which people need to be gathered together as a group. So not only assigning another group thing, but a regular group thing, maybe even another weekly group thing. Our 55K goal is our a show that we want to do, and that'll be another group activity. Granted, it'll have a specific host, but I want as many of the allies to be a part of every episode as possible. Also, Ian has been dying to do an X-Wing something, a big X-Wing with all of the various miniatures that we have, and playing that game. So it's tricky because where I don't see that happening in the foreseeable future, that's not something probably is going to happen the next week or the week after. It is something that the allies do want to have happen. It just does not fit into our schedule. And specifically being in the new studio, there's a lot of logistics. It's tricky to have Ian out because if we were to be moving, unplugging things and moving cameras around and stuff like that, I'm sure he would want to be a part of it. So there is a desire. It is not in the schedule yet. Kif, you keep iterating that you don't have the equipment you want, that you can't stream from both studio rooms, that you're not ready for high production E3, and that the lights are breaking. However, you also keep saying that you've made a quality of life purchases in the green room office. I wonder if it would be better to make 2 lists. I have many lists. I have more than 2. 1, things that enable new content, that increase production values, that are highly visible or audible to the people watching your content. 2, quality of life improvements. Then accept you should primarily focus on the first list, and that quality of life might not be ideal in the short term. The sad truth is that people who don't watch your intros will probably never know or care what happens in 4 of the rooms. So focusing on things that we will see here would satiate their desire for change and potentially help gain patrons. Yes, but that may not be the thing that we want to do. The quality of life improvements that we made a couple weeks ago were to make us happy. They were to make the 9 allies comfortable in that space. So that's not something I can look back and be like, yeah, that doesn't have any value because that light's still flickering. Like, that had a tremendous amount of value. We have a table we can eat food at now. It's like those were a lot of things. And admittedly, some of those things, like, yeah, we could have still, stacked up our toilet paper and, paper towel rolls in the corner of the bathroom. We didn't need to get those things. But it's like, as long as we're still buying it, and as long as I can still, $2,000 isn't outside the realm of craziness in terms of like getting furniture, I think it's less... Kif, by the nature of your question, it sounds like, why would we ever go to the second list ever? Let's always do the first list. Like, let's always do things that'll make every show look and sound better at all times. Let's never improve anything in terms of quality of life or to make us happier or more comfortable in that space. Let's always make our audience and patrons happy every single time. And like, obviously that's not, the right call. Like and keep in mind, it's not just 2 lists, man. There's a lot of, because list number 3, events, E3, Easy Living, possibly fundraisers or elongated group streams or stuff like that we do in the future. List number 3. List number 4, new shows, Mysterious Monsters, shows we haven't produced yet, exclusive shows like the one we just shot this last week that's going to be coming to you soon. So there's multiple lists of things, because you also talk about number 1, things that enable new content, and then quality of life improvements. There's like a 1.5 list of things you wouldn't necessarily see on camera, but would also improve the content that we're already doing. And so if we got that light fixed, that wouldn't enable new content. Getting our light fixed wouldn't increase YouTube numbers. It wouldn't make our Patreon go up. It would just make that light stop blinking. So there's a lot of things. I think when we spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on our sound equipment, which I think or sound absorbing materials in the studio, which did make it sound better, and I'm happy that we spent that money. Did that change anything with our business? I don't think so. And so the enabling new content list is different from a tech list. So there's lots of different lists, and it's not necessarily a question of what list should you go to on by default always, but what time is it appropriate to buy certain things? Again, with Ian out of town, it's not a great time to make a lot of changes to the studio to unplug everything that he's done in the streaming space or in the main studio stage and try to fix things. And so it's tricky with people's schedules. It's tricky with how much we have to spend on any given basis. We don't know how much stuff we want to spend on equipment versus E3. Also, reserving the whatever spot we're going to be at for Easy Living this year. So yeah, it's tricky. I don't think you hit one list altogether in 1 month. You kind of pick what you want to grab from each list as you go on. But I hear you. Yeah, and that must be kind of frustrating I imagine it's always frustrating if there's one particular thing you want us to fix, and then you keep seeing us spending money on all sorts of other things, and you're like, that thing, fix that thing. Rappy, to clarify on the death animation suggestion for Mysterious Monsters, I wasn't necessarily suggesting unique animations for each monster, which I want, which Ian and Jason have also initially interpreted the suggestion as when the episode was airing, but I also clarified to Ian. I meant the screen flashing, sprites shaking, and crumbling fading animations, such as when you beat a boss in Final Fantasy VI, or at least for the mixed up monstrosity, or whatever your guys' take on that would be. This way, I don't think you necessarily need to contract the pixel artist again, and it adds a little more oomph and charm to the final blow/ending. And that's it for business questions. Yeah. Again, all Mysterious Monster notes are passed on to Ian and Hubert and Jason, and it's just a question of what they want to do, what they can do. But that is a fun idea. I know that they've made all sorts of little tiny graphical tweaks from the first episode leading into the concert live episode that we did, and then leading into the episodes after that. And I know that even from that 3-episode shoot that we did, Ian immediately was like, I got to change this and change this and change this. So every time you get another batch of Mysterious Monsters, there will probably be lots of little tiny graphical changes. I don't know if it's in the cards for them to change that much. Speaking of Ian, we got 2 codes for Dreams. And Ian's been playing lots of Dreams. And so it's been fun talking on, again, Slack. It's been fun talking on Slack with Ian about Dreams and doing fun stuff with Dreams. Apologies that we never did. We're not reviewing Dreams, the early access. I want to review Dreams when I've been playing lots of Days Gone. I actually finally yesterday played Dreams for a while. I did a bunch of tutorials again and messed around with the music creator a little bit. That game is like a college course, man. There's a lot of stuff to learn, a lot of stuff to go through. Even when you finish all the tutorials, which I haven't yet, but I did do all the audio tutorials, for example, and there's still a lot going on under the hood that they don't really get into. And so I don't know if I'm gonna have to check out video tutorials on their YouTube channel or whatever. But yeah, personal questions. Let me take another little sip. Take a little pause here. Personal questions. Eric Jackson. If you could retrofit any game for a VR experience, which game or games would you wish to play? My go-to pick is Black and White. Definitely TIE Fighter for the PC, which is awesome because, and I feel so stoked saying that, because you don't hear me talk about PC exclusive games very often. But TIE Fighter was recommended to me on so many occasions as a Star Wars fan, and I finally, when I did the Star Wars retrospective, I was like, oh, TIE Fighter, let's finally I can play TIE Fighter, and X-Wing, obviously, which was before TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, or there was 4 of them. I can't remember what the last one was called. It's like a X-Wing Alliance or something. But Obra Dinn. Oh yeah, that'd be cool in VR. But yeah, just some kind of, and this is why I'm very tempted to have like a full streamer culture, where I'm just a solo streamer, where I literally have right now my the space is still being kind of put together. I'm just more focused on the studio than my stuff set up at home. But for example, I don't have VR here, and I don't have my own personal VR setup. We do have an Oculus and a Vive. I still have the Vive sensors up in here because we haven't done any VR in the studio yet. But I would love to just have my own Oculus, and I would love to just have it set up all the time where I could just come in here and just play VR all the time. And I wonder if I was like that, if I had just my gamer PC capture, edit, all my setup just locked in, and no console was ever moved, and no one ever had to borrow my controllers, or I didn't have to move anything around. I wonder if I would be really into Eve Valkyrie. And it's been interesting. I saw somebody the other day they did a sound. They had Spotify fed through their PC into their headphones that they were using for VR, and they made it sound like all of the music coming from Spotify sounded like it was in a small room, sounded like it was in their cockpit. And so they were in their cockpit, going over their controls and everything in VR and listening to music that sounded like, it's kind of like when you hear the song with Guardians of the Galaxy when they're inside their ship, and sounds a little echoey, sounds a little tinny. And I was like, that's so cool. Am I excited about the new Valve VR? I'm excited about everything in VR. The new portable Oculus looks really great. I haven't demoed that. The new Oculus headset that they're going to be updating is great. The new Vive headset looks incredible. I'm sure I've checked it out at events when I check out VR stuff. Yeah, I want all of the VRs. It's just it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to adopt and a tricky thing to do on a regular basis. And it messes up my hair. I'm kidding. Varun Kachwaha. I remember a few months ago when I asked about hot chocolate games in the Easy Allies Q&A, you had a positive reaction when I mentioned that. The Unfinished Swan was one of my hot chocolate games. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that game and hear your thoughts and opinions on it because it's a game that isn't talked about too much. The thing that I loved most about this game was that it just made me feel like a child again, and in a good way. Games in general just seem to have shifted into a more serious territory, and that's okay. It's just a lot of games seem to have to go for a serious tone or edge. And here's a game that just doesn't try to be any of that. It knows what it wants to be and is proud of that fact. But the way this game was just made with so much love and passion, it honestly feels like that very love and passion just jumped out of the screen and wrapped itself around me as I played it. The music is honestly just perfect. The way the piano is the main theme of the game just sets the tone of adventure and exploration, and is one of my favorite themes ever. And the story on the outside is the story of a king, but with much deeper themes that an adult could catch on to, is what elevates this game above most other games of the type. It's just a breath of fresh air in so many ways, and it's an experience that sticks with me still. I want to know your thoughts and opinions on the game. What did you think about the art style, music? And did you feel the same way about how it's just so refreshing to play because of how unique an experience it is? Yeah, this was a Unfinished Swan. For those of you that aren't familiar, there's more to it, but it's the first-person adventure puzzle game where it begins by you literally throwing paint at a empty environment, and when you throw paint at something, it'll splat, and then you can see it. It reminds me of like Portal in a way, because I believe it was originally the product of students. Like, it was a student product that they, again, caught on so much and got such a great reaction that they moved on and made it a full game. And it definitely came out in that Journey, Portal, like indie 2 to 3 hour darling era that was really great. And I think maybe stuff like Gone Home, and which I know has a very serious tone, and Edith Finch, I think, also kind of stemmed from it. Obviously, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and all of those things. Like, we've seen this evolution of these games that are a little more careful, ask you to be a little more patient, take your time, really enjoy the environment, experiment with new control schemes and possible, again, weapons or tools that you wouldn't necessarily get in a game. And just sitting inside also comes to mind, which I think Inside definitely has negative parts to it, but I think at the end kind of put a smile on my face. And when I look back at Inside, I view it just as a I don't know, not necessarily as emotional or in serious a tone as some of these other things, because of just how off the wall that game gets. But specifically with Unfinished Swan, it's a very experimental game. It's a game about discovery. It's a game where you're constantly wondering what the next part is going to be, and especially when you see the gameplay elements that are involved, how stuff becomes more elaborate as you move on through the game, and obviously the connotations with the story that you are being told, but also the story underneath that story. I think what's great about Unfinished Swan and Journey in a lot of these games, especially Inside, is I think anyone can enjoy it. A lot of times when I finish a game right now, I just wrote a script for Days Gone, and I very much try to encapsulate who should play it, who I think might like this game, and if you like these things, this worked out or this might not have worked out. Whereas Unfinished Swan's like, just play it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're 8 years old, if you are 80. It's something that is so unique and so interesting, and even if you just play it for 10 minutes, even if you just play the first part, it's like you said when you're like, it's an experience that sticks with me still. And I think that's like the best review I can give of Unfinished Swan, that I will never forget that game. Anytime somebody brings that game up, it's like, oh yeah, Swan. Like, there might have been parts that I thought were more interesting than others. The story might have been a little vague for my tastes. Maybe a repeat viewing someday might open up some things. But I love it, and as someone, obviously, my wife Amanda and myself are very much into fantasy, and I love Disneyland, and I definitely got kind of a Disneyland-ish vibe, kind of an old like Sleeping Beauty fantasy vibe, from the world that they were selling in that game a little bit. And even though it is a short game, I think I've done a pretty good job talking about it without really getting into spoilers. But it is fascinating, and it is a little spooky. There are definitely some spooky parts of Unfinished Swan, which I appreciated. It's kind of scary not to know where you're going, to have your vision obscured in an interesting way. But I love that, and I love doing that on Cup of Jones too. Just being like, hey, this game, I like this game. Do you like this game? And I'm like, I like that game. You should check that game out. I wonder if where that's available. The Unfinished Swan. The Witness would be cool in VR. Yeah, and again, The Witness, I think obviously, comes from this era of like third person, first person. I mean, The Witness is much longer than 3 or 4 hours, but it's still something where you pop into a world. The game that Ian loves, the Talos Principle, where you're like, how did I get to this place? What's going on? Those games rule. William Penny. I have a print journalism background, and I currently work at CBS. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think many of the allies have print journalism backgrounds as well, considering how good their writing is. Well, thank you, William. However, I found this I don't, which is why my reviews aren't good. I found this to be a double-edged sword when it comes to video reviews. The main problem I've found, and this isn't isolated to EZA, big sites like IGN do it too, is that they are essentially writing a review the same way they would be for a magazine or newspaper, and then having you read it out loud. When one writes something that is meant to be read, many writers include complicated sentence structure and vocabulary to keep the reader interested. This is true. A reader has time to go back and reread a sentence if it doesn't make sense the first time through. This simply doesn't work with writing what is consumed through listening. A sentence must be simple and clear enough to be understood immediately. I initially worked in print journalism and then moved into broadcast news. The book Writing Broadcast News by Mervyn Block really helped me understand how writing could and should be dramatically different depending on how it is meant to be consumed. I believe it is essential reading for anyone who aspires to write for radio or television. Could you pass this information along to the other allies if you think that is something they would be interested in? And Daniel Bloodworth chimed in, thanks for the note. I'm not sure if there are specific reviews that you find to be problematic, and I wonder that as well, William. It sounds like you do. William, it sounds like you're like, yeah, I think you guys fall into this pattern sometimes, and I would love to know when we do, because this is something I'm very, very much aware of, and I've communicated a lot. I might have communicated on Cup of Jones or on other shows that we've done. I don't know, but like you knocked it out of the park. Home run. You're absolutely right, and I would love to talk about this. You've done a really good job talking about it anyway. I'm not sure, but Bloodworth continues, I'm not sure if there's specific reviews that you find to be problematic, but this is something I try to keep on top of when editing review scripts. If something is too complex or taking too many asides, I try to make it more straightforward, direct, and clear to understand. I think one of the, there's two main reasons why you need to write very specific words when you know someone will be reading it out loud. It also helps to know who that person is. So when they know it's me and they know my way of speaking, my cadence, the tones that I use, then you can keep in mind, okay, ooh, this is gonna be a good line for Jones, or oh, I know that I know this will be understood because of how things like this have been read in the past. One is I'm trying to think of. Must is a great word. I tend to always cross out the word must because nobody says must. You must bring me that plate. You must meet me at 2 p.m. You must eat your broccoli. It's just very Downton Abbey. It's very, just personally like, and it's not only a thing that like, well, I don't say that. It's just like, I don't hear that ever from anybody. Like, it's very rare that somebody's going to be like, oh man, I got a headache. I must take some Excedrin. It's like, what? You say have to. Everybody says have to. I got to do that or I have to do that. It's the way human beings speak. And so when you're writing, you might be like, yes, in Days Gone, you must pick up gas to fill your... Like, no, you have to pick up gas when you find it. And so... there's the one example of just like, not only will I make that, I think that's okay to be left in the review. If we have like a text version or something, I won't like notify Huber or Blood or something and be like, I changed to the word must, but sometimes I'll make those changes. One example I think I did, and I don't know if it's going to make it into the review or something. I think it was in one video where I talk about frames per second, and it said, this is at 30 frames per second, but then this was at 60 frames per second. And ending the sentence on frames per second, it was just kind of like, it was weird. It's when you read it, whatever, like your brain makes it work and then you move on to the next sentence. But when I'm saying it out loud, it's like, boy, I really sound like I'm reading a script there. And so I did a take where I took out the frames per second, where I said, this is at 30 frames per second, but at this is at 60. You know what I'm talking about. 60 what? 60 what? He didn't say. It's like you understand what I'm saying. And which brings me to the other thing, which is, and this is kind of somewhat business related, but I put it in personal, which is, and also this kind of factors into doing video reviews as opposed to just text reviews, is we know there's going to be a visual component. We know that even though I'm making this opinion and kind of making it, I'm not elaborating, incredibly on this, over me saying this, you will be seeing what I'm talking about, hopefully, if you watch the video review. And so you need to understand that those two things are going to be back to back. So even if it doesn't necessarily fill in all the holes in your imagination of what it could be, you have this video clip that will hopefully do that or help you do that. And when you have someone reading it, there is so much inflection that is brought to your script. It's why sarcasm is like impossible to do on the internet, because you don't have that wink, or you don't have that inflection, the tone that somebody can bring to saying something. And so that's kind of one of my biggest things. I think a lot of the reading that I do for reviews is kind of on autopilot now, but one of the things that I definitely do try to mentally, in terms of like what inflection I should do, what emphasis I should do in any given case. But I always try to get a sense of, when I read something, based on the first paragraph, last paragraph, and the score, obviously, again, scores, and I can realize, aha, here's what this person thinks of this game. Here's the attitude that I have going into this. So even if I talk about good things, if the overall attitude is bad, I won't be as excited about those good things as I would be in another review where I was really happy about them. And so I try to just generally keep that attitude alive throughout the whole video. And I think that also helps really come across in terms of like understanding somebody's opinion, or understanding where something's going. I know a lot of times, a review that I try to avoid that can be frustrating to get, or a comment on a review that can be frustrating to get, is someone's like, you gave this an 8 and that script didn't read like an 8 at all. And it's like, we always try to make sure those things match up. I know Blood is always on top of that. And certainly when I get a score, I try to have the read reflect the attitude of that score. Tom Cressy. But yeah, I'll read that book. You dropped a movie quote in a recent stream that went something along the lines of, "No need to worry, boys, I'm an expert in what?" It sounded similar, but for the life of me, I can't remember what film it's from. No amount of Googling was able to solve this. Help me out here, Jones. What film is that from? Well, it might not have helped with Google because you quoted it wrong. The actual quote is, and I want to see the very first person in chat that gets this. Somebody might have already gotten this. You boys got nothing to worry about. I'm a professional. Professional what? That's the quote. See who's the first person to get it. I'll take a pause. One of my favorite quotable movies of all time. I think I could do this movie as a one-person show. I know like every single line from this movie. I'll throw out as many comments as quotes I can. Nobody knows? Oh, come on. Bambi? No, not Bambi. Citizen Kane, Forrest Gump, Bleach, The Big Bang Theory, Raising Arizona, Three Amigos, the Fiasconauts episode, The Heist, Stop with the Ready Player One spoilers, Jones. Definitely Billy Madison. Yes. Austin Brackeen has it. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, man. Come on. It's when they're dropping off the car. And he's just like, somebody could look at it wrong. A bird could shit on it. And like they drive it in, and the guy's like, he's like, all right. And he can pick up the camera, and it's like freaking out. And he's like, you boys have nothing to worry about. I'm a professional. And he gets in the car and drives off, and Cameron says to Ferris, a professional what? The question isn't what are we going to do? The question is what aren't we going to do? Please don't say we're not going to take the car back. Please don't say we're not going to take the car back. If you had access to such a fine automobile, would you take it back right away? Neither would I. I based a lot of my personality. I don't know if you can tell. I based a lot of my personality at a young age on Ferris Bueller. Man, I love that movie so much. I have to accept the fact that some of you watching this episode of Cup of Jones are like, what? Ferris who? Ferris Bueller is a wonderful film released in the 80s about a kid who takes the day off work because he can. Is a hero for all kids. Oh my God, you're dying? And his friend has a really nice car, and he basically steals it. It's terrible. He basically just straight up steals his friend's dad's car. What an ass. James Vest, I was thinking about your T2 breakdown from a few weeks ago. I found it very informative, and it made me think more about a movie that I enjoyed but haven't seen in a long time. So I figured, why not ask? Do these movies hold up or not? You don't need to see anything more that it holds up or it doesn't hold up or never seen it. But I've definitely seen all of these films several times. But I was curious what you thought of some other movies. To cut to the chase, does The Rock, Gladiator, or Goldeneye hold up? The Rock probably holds up. I haven't seen it in a long time. The Rock has an excellent soundtrack. The Rock possibly has one of the greatest action soundtracks of all time. Bum 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 dun 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 dun. Really good soundtrack. I believe it's Hans Zimmer, the amazing action generating Hans Zimmer. But I remember it was so cheesy. So cheesy. You remember that song Rocket Man? Well, you're the Rocket Man. Like, I remember seeing that in theaters and being like, whew, this is bad. I mean, that whole era, the Con Air and Broken Arrow and Face Off, and like, we just got these so dramatic slow-mo, Nick Cage with the long hair. Like, it was this interesting, Bad Boys, it was this interesting era in action of like, grenades. You're just like, whoa, everybody calm down. Ed Harris, really good. I think Michael Biehn is in The Rock too. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think it holds up if you have that in mind going into it. Like if I like went over to a friend's house and he's like, we're watching Broken Arrow right now, I'd be like, let's do it. John Cusack, Christian Slater, let's do this. But I wouldn't be like, yes, that fine, Broken Arrow, yes, that dramatic portrayal of nuclear proliferation. Like, no, this is a very silly, over the top, goofy action film, as opposed to something serious, like Terminator 2. So yeah, I think The Rock would be enjoyable to be viewed, and I think holds up in that way because I didn't take it that seriously the first time I saw it. So in that way, it probably holds up. Gladiator, I don't know, because Gladiator is so dramatic. It's interesting, and now that I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is in a different time period, but there's definite Gladiator vibes in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It'd be interesting to go back and watch Gladiator. I remember not being a big fan of Joaquin Phoenix at the time. I remember kind of his portrayal being weird, but I went back and watched like the first 40 minutes of Gladiator a year or two back. It was just on HBO or Netflix or something, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, Gladiator. And I watched a little bit of it, and one of the things that impressed me was the cast. I forgot how many really great actors are in Gladiator, and it's probably one of Russell Crowe's finest. I believe he won for that, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. I would imagine to reference Gladiator, I'm about there. It probably does, but I don't know. Goldeneye totally holds up. Goldeneye rules. Goldeneye is fantastic. Pierce, definitely the best Pierce Brosnan Bond, no question. And Sean Bean holds up. What's interesting is a lot of people talked about, when I think about Pierce Brosnan and James Bond, I think about like, Tomorrow Never Dies is so silly, and World Is Not Enough is so silly, and Die Another Day is so silly. Goldeneye is really silly too. I Am Invincible. Like, there's a lot of really goofy stuff in Goldeneye that I totally forgot going back and watching it and being like, we should have known the type of Pierce Brosnan movies we were going to get. Like, there definitely is a Roger Moore, hokiness to all of this. But the score is really good. It's just a very interesting movie, and it evolves in a very interesting way. It's fascinating that the guy from the FBI, I think that the guy from the U.S. government that Bond meets up with, that has the tattoo, that actor played a villain in an earlier Bond movie, which was fascinating. It was weird to see that actor come back and be like, wait, what? He was already in a Bond movie. Like, you can't do that. You can't just come back as a different character in a Bond movie. Of course you can. They've done that before. But yeah, Goldeneye of all of those holds up. It's probably Goldeneye the best, Gladiator underneath that, and then The Rock underneath that. Although The Rock, I just want to just hang out with Dan Reichert and watch The Rock. Asbo Zapruder, here are your 3 Rodgers and Hammerstein classics for this week. Wonderful. Time to talk about musical theater. Oklahoma, South Pacific, and The Sound of Music. Yes, these old school cheesy musicals. Oklahoma, I have seen several times. Oklahoma's Oklahoma. It is a fun show. I don't think it's a show that like would move me emotionally. I think it's a show. I know that Oklahoma came back like 10 or 15 years ago, didn't it? Like, there was Oklahoma was back on Broadway for some reason, and I don't know. Oklahoma is almost like a ballet in parts. It's where there's lots of like weird dream sequences, and there's I think obviously it's such an expansive state, such an expansive setting. They talk about the environment so much, so that I think when you're staging it, you really want to have as much space on stage as you can. You really want to have big backdrops with lots of big lights and colors. And there's a bright golden haze. Like you want to see that bright golden haze everywhere. But plot wise, I don't know if Oklahoma's really going to grip you in 2019. There's a couple of tense moments, but the rest of that is just kind of like everything's up to date in Kansas City. South Pacific does not hold up. South Pacific, I hadn't seen for a long, long, long time. I think I was like familiar with the music, and then it was like on TV for some reason, and Amanda was like, let's watch South Pacific. And I was like, all right. And we watched it, and I was like, whoa. That movie is sexist. That movie is racist. That movie is just dumb. That's a bad musical. Apologies to any fans of South Pacific out there. South Pacific does not hold up. South Pacific is not great. It's just like one of those musicals. You're like, okay, let's not do this show. It'd be hard for somebody to do South Pacific in 2019 and be like, well, hear me out. I have this idea for how it's gonna go, but it's kind of that old, just really. It's like when when you start a story and there's like a woman over there and a man over there and you're just like, oh, just get it over with. Come on. It's like, I know you're going to, oh, I know. Now she doesn't like you. And 30 minutes later, oh, they're together, are they? Okay. And as much as you love Rodgers and Hammerstein, they are very classic in that sense. There's a new revival of South Pacific. You're kidding. This is Jacob Park. It's back right now. Are you serious? People are saying Gladiator holds up. And South Pacific is back right now. Okay. All right. I'm curious, how that stuff is pulled off. I saw White Christmas, the musical. I'd seen White Christmas, the movie, but I went to Amanda's folks' home in Florida, and they work with a local, or they had for many years and are still involved with a local community theater, and they put on White Christmas. And I was like, I've never seen White Christmas before. And it's certainly jolly as heck if it's Christmas. It's an exciting thing to spend time with these characters and to experience the story. But like outside of Christmas, the story's very like, okay. It's just just a lot of old school, there's just some stories you've seen like a billion times. Sound of Music, actually. I was a blind spot of mine for a very long time. I watched Sound of Music like 5 years ago for the first time in my life. I'd never seen it. I knew almost all of the songs. Good night. Like I'd seen all these jokes, like Family Guy does that joke. It's like I knew of Sound of Music. I love the gif of her with assault or like machine guns where she's just like spinning through the hills. What to do with a problem like Maria, I knew these songs. Like I'd sung them for recitals and like or like if I was at a voice lesson or something, I might have sung something and like I knew the story. I know how it ends. I know about Rolf, and I know, I knew all of this stuff. I just never watched it. And that was one of those things where it was fun to like hang out with musical theater people, and they were like, Sound of Music. And I'm like, yeah, never seen that. And they're like, what? I shocked a lot of people because I went to Europe. In my group, I went to Europe at the end of high school. I was very fortunate to go to Europe for a whole month, and we went all over the place. And I'm assuming it's in Austria. I don't know. But we went to the gazebo, everybody, from Sound of Music. Even though I have seen Sound of Music now, and I've never seen it on stage. But we were at the gazebo, and all these people were like, "It's the gazebo," and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen Sound of Music. So yeah, if I think between those three, I'd probably want to do Oklahoma. Oklahoma is just a really great, fun show. It's just not that deep. But the Sound of Music is also fun. I don't know who I could play in Sound of Music, but I've always wanted to be the main guy in Oklahoma. I can't remember what his name is. The guy who starts the show. Fun to start a show too. Fun to be the first guy. Well, to come out on stage, like curtain opens up and you're just like, it's my show. It's always fun. Nice. Ryan Ponder played J. Pierpont Finch and how to succeed in business without really trying. In middle school? That's fun. You're doing musicals in middle school? That's awesome. All right. Daniel Garza Andrade, what would be some constructive critiques that you would say to each ally, and also one thing that you would praise of them? I'm not going to do one for each individual ally. Maybe I'll do this as an editorial one of these days. I just don't like to be critical of people. For a random response to a question. But I will say this to absolutely every single ally that is either listening to this episode or not. Pick up your stuff, okay? Just clean up your bottles in the studio. Just don't leave stuff lying around. Don't put stuff on the floor. Don't leave food lying around. Don't leave drinks lying around. Stop it. I don't know who it is, which is why it's directed at every single ally. But it's just, I'll just be like having a conversation in the stream room and just talking to the guys, and I'll look over, and like on the counter in the corner, it's just a San Pelli. I'm like, come on. It's fascinating to me. It's just fascinating to me to get in that mindset. And like, I guess I've done it before, but to like walk into a space, take a beverage, drink the beverage, put it down, and then walk away. It's like interesting to me. It's an interesting concept, you know? Like sometimes I've wanted to find my drink. Like, where was my drink? Is that it? And somebody will put a drink next to mine. I'm like, of those two drinks, I don't know what's mine. But the idea of like, was I even drinking something? I don't know. Like that. Whew, that's fascinating for me. This, you know, I feel an attachment to the drink. You know what I mean? It's my drink. Nobody touches drink. It's my drink. I'll take care of this. I'll you know. I'll fill you up. If this was a bottle, I'm going to get you to the recycling plant. Don't worry, buddy. It's you and me. We're partners here in this project, in this episode of Frame Trap. Red Bull, it's you and me. It's also nice because I have the cup, so a lot of times I'll just open the bottle, pour it out, put it right in recycling. Done. The nice thing is I work with 8 guys that are all very driven to get done with the stuff that they want to get done. And I appreciate that so much. I respect that so much. And so kudos to them for consistently doing that. And I think at least just this year, I can count one occasion for every single ally where they've come to me and surprised me with something that they want to do, some idea that I didn't tell them we needed, that I didn't think there was time for in their schedule, but they were like, I want to do this. It's important to me. I have an idea of how we can improve this company. And that's incredible. That's essential when you have a equal partnership like what we have, when you have, you know, a company where people need to come in and they need to do their share of work. We have a really dedicated crew, and a crew that is willing to help in a lot of ways. And I love each and every one of them, which is why I'm not going to be I'm not going to have too many criticisms. It's nice to throw that one out with the bottles because, you know, maybe one ally is like, I think that was me. Then you know I'm talking to you. Patrick, more hot musical theater talk. Yes. If you were to cast each of the allies as a lead in a musical, which musical would you pick for each ally? Yeah, some of these Cup of Jones questions, I'll tell you this. Some people talk about like length of Cup of Jones and you're going to do anything to curb it. Whenever I get somebody who's like, say something 9 times, it's like, I may not always do that. I may just like shorten your question a little bit, because some people will throw something out. They're like, hey, do an editorial on this. And it's like, I don't have time. But I love these suggestions. Is this hypothetical? In this hypothetical, they'll be able to sing the role perfectly, so you won't worry about capabilities in that way. Suggestions. Huber as Harold Hill in The Music Man. Yes. Brad as Andrew Jackson in Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. Never even heard of that show. Kyle as Finn in How to Succeed, obviously. Bloodworth as Bad Boy. I would love to see Bloodworth as Sweeney Todd. That'd be great. Brandon as Quixote from Man of La Mancha. Thank you. I'd have to wear a beard, though, right? Ben as Seymour in Little Shop. Yeah, if you've seen... the movie, you probably know who Seymour is. Suddenly Seymour. Don is Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady. Yes. Oh, that would be really good. Ian is Mark in Rent. I don't know if Ian likes Rent. Rent's not my favorite show, gotta be honest. Damiani as Javert in Les Miserables is probably the best. I don't think I could pick... Maybe I don't know who Bloody Andrew Jackson. I don't know that show, so maybe I'll pick one for Brad. Oh, the dentist. And if Ben is going to be Seymour in Little Shop, then Brad is the dentist. Can you imagine Brad as the dentist in Little Shop? That would be so great. We could all be in Little Shop. Oh, that'd be fun. But yeah, Brad is the dentist. 'Cause I'm a dentist. And 6. I would love to play the dentist, but I'm probably too old now. Jason Wallstrom. I thought I would come to Trailer Jones himself to ask your opinion about what are some trailer tropes that need to go away. Things we've seen just too many times in either film or video game trailers that no longer help to sell the product, but make you roll your eyes or laugh, pulling you out of the trailer altogether. I'll name a couple of that have come to mind that drive me nutty. The first one is that I call the bad song cover, sung by some unseen ethereal voice. The X-Men franchise is very guilty of this in recent years. Take the Dark Phoenix teaser, when you hear a guy who is most certainly not Jim Morrison saying, "This is the end, beautiful friend." Get it? This is the last X-Men movie for Fox, so it's the end. Gah. Another one that you're familiar with, The Jump. We saw it most recently in the Jedi Fallen Order, where the main character jumps a few feet. Not especially that impressive considering the guy has force abilities, but we've also seen The Jump in trailers for Tomb Raider and I was just going to say A Way Out, totally. And I might add The Jump also includes a deep bass rumble where I think we're supposed to be in awe of how far the person is jumping. What are some moments in trailers that drive you nuts? By the way, I thought the episode 9 teaser was freaking awesome. May the Force be with you. May the Force also be with you, my friend Jason Wallstrom. And I also thought the episode 9 teaser was freaking awesome. I was shocked, I tell you, by how emotionally stirred I was inside following the episode 9 trailer. I mean, obviously the trailers. And here's the thing. I'm going to throw out some things along with your suggestions that I don't like. Not only do I imagine a lot of people would be like, I don't really mind those in trailers, but trailer editors would be like, you're straight up wrong. You're wrong. Like, you need those in a trailer. Trailers, like, that's how you cut a trailer. The bad song cover can be done well. Yeah, bad song cover, you can put bad in front of it. Bad editing, bad sound design, bad voiceover, bad ADR. Bad anything shouldn't be in a trailer. But song covers, you can do it well. Like, again, the Stranger Things using Bob O'Reilly recently, I thought was masterful. I thought that was really, really well done. And if you go back and watch the latest Mortal Kombat 11 trailer, they used what is it even is that song called? Is it called like Test Your Might or something? Like, I don't know. And correct me if I'm wrong, chat. That was written for the movie, right? Because I want to cover that on Trailer Jones tomorrow when we record it. But it can be done well. In case in point, when they just recently used that in Mortal Kombat 11, the Test Your Might, that song. It's the Mortal Kombat theme song. I mean, it was only in the movie. Like, it was never in any video game, as far as I know. That was just in the movie. But they repurpose it. So they make it like you can hear the song and you're like, oh, it's this song, but I'm still going to surprise you. A fun one is the trailer for The Dirt, which is the Motley Crue movie on Netflix, which I've watched a couple times because, as you know, Netflix loves to show you trailers whenever you're just like going through the menu. And I'll stop and watch that trailer because I think it's well put together, and they do, I believe it's primarily Kickstart My Heart, but they take a lot of parts of it and take just the guitar riffs and the vocals and they repurpose it in fun ways. So as long as you're surprising me in a way, when you say this is the end, when I hear immediately my brain's like, got it, it's the end by the Doors. And if you just do the end by the Doors, it didn't do anything for me. I'm not like, you got me. It's like, I was waiting for that thing to change. I watch media to be surprised, to see new things, to see something unexpected. And so when you show me something that's expected, snooze. The jump in trailers, I think, can also be good. I think it's just context for the jump. It's like, I think you need to show me a jump that I don't know how it's going to end. I think out of all the ones that you suggested, Tomb Raider and A Way Out and Jedi Fallen Order, I think A Way Out actually has the more important jump, because I think not only do you not necessarily know how that's going to, maybe he falls down the cliff. You can survive that drop possibly by falling in the river. Maybe this is how they get separated. You also have the issue of the trust. So that one character has to catch the other character in A Way Out. And so I think that shot, even though it is cheesy, I think, kind of plays to that. This, like, is he going to catch him? Are you going to catch him? Here's an opportunity for you to just let him fall. What are you going to do? And so I think, again, you need the context behind it. Why would I be scared of this character in this moment? If I see Lara Croft jumping for something, it's like, she's probably going to make it. She's probably going to make it. She's probably going to grab the other end. She might slip. Oh, not that groove, but this one. But she's probably going to be okay. If you're going to write an end to Lara Croft, it probably won't be a slip. It probably won't be Lara being like, eating the turkey sandwich. What? Probably not the way Lara Croft's going to go out. Just predicting that. And again, for a Force user, in Fallen Order to be like, oh, gotta make the ship. It's like, I've already seen in this trailer him make that jump, so he's gonna make that jump. He's gonna be fine. Screaming Argonaut, not if it's like the way I used to play, not the gameplay, the cutscene. So yeah, expectations I think play up a lot toward the things that you're talking about in terms of like knowing what's going to happen. For trailers, man, we got to take these trailer intro things out, especially if you're going to put them in movie theaters. Stop it with this is the trailer you're about to watch, 15-second smash cut. Hate those with a passion. I think, and here's where, again, trailer editors are going to be like, yeah, you're just wrong, Jones. I think trailers have way too many sound effects. I think trailers have way too many visuals, special things. Like, I hate that movies started to adapt this too, but I'm not a big fan of the ramp. I'm not a big fan of, like, we shot a big drone shot moving up to this house, so we're going to go up really quick, and then boop, and then stop, and then now you're somewhere. It's like, that just does nothing for me. It's like, whoa, we moved towards that door so quickly. Like, I don't understand the, like Fast and the Furious does it a lot, and like a lot of trailers do it a lot, where it's just gotta get to the shot. There's no time. We can't show you a calm, wide dolly shot. It's boring. You're wrong. Fast. I don't understand those. And I don't understand the black. I've never understood the black framey cutty thing, where you'll get to like an important point where it's like somebody is gonna like melee somebody, like a zombie movie where they like got him on the ground and they're gonna like hit somebody with an axe. Right on the motion of like that last like second of intense action, you cut every single frame and then you take all those clips out and then you just put black frames in. So it's like, I can't see it that well. I don't get that. I don't get that move. To me, something went wrong. Like, it just, my eye, maybe this I edit too much, but like whenever I see that, I'm like, I think that was intended to make the moment I just watched more intense visually and emotionally, but it annoyed me. It didn't do anything for me. It does nothing. Unless, again, it's the only time where it does is if it hits right on the music. If you have a music track that has a bump, 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 and you like accentuate those beats. If you have somebody like reloading a gun or like putting equipment on or like doing something, stamping something, and you need to time out the edits to make it time that, yeah, you can do jump cuts and stuff. But if it's just, like Austin Brackeen says, strobe lights. It's kind of like what it feels like, strobe. And you're like, all right, just tell me the story, dude. Calm down. Cabbage Lad. This is my first question. Yes, Cabbage Lad. I have not heard from you yet, Cabbage Lad. I really didn't think it would be about musical theater. I love how much musical theater is in this episode. I've just come back from seeing Blood Brothers. I was wondering if you were familiar with it. I am. What's the Blood Brothers? What's the song from Blood Brothers? Damn. There's a really good one at the end that they sing. I saw what is his name now too? He was in the Partridge Family. I saw him in Blood Brothers with his brother, actually, his real life brother. Come on now. He was the David Cassidy? I saw the Cassidy brothers in Blood Brothers, and that was really great. Damn, what is that song? Tell Me It's Not True? No, that's the Donnie Bonaducci. No, Tell Me It's Not True is the song the mom sings. What's the song the brothers sing at the end? There's some like, because like the mom is a big, probably the biggest role in that. She's the one that's going to get the special bow at the end of the show. But yeah, I have seen Blood Brothers before. It's been a while. It's been like since the 90s, I think I've seen it. It's pretty well known in the UK and used heavily in GCSE work in secondary school SATs in the US. It was much deeper than I expected with some heavy undertones. Just wanted to know your thoughts. Here in time for Cup of Gripes, says Blood. Have I left a lot of bottles? I usually take them with me. I don't know, Blood. I don't think you have, because I think I've seen bottles before that say blood on them, which would be funny if it was actually blood in the bottle, but no. No, again, I'm not pointing fingers at any one specific ally. I just see lots of bottles. I just see lots of stuff left around. I'll make another point, Blood, just to add on that. If you see us open snacks and an ally's like, oh, look at these peanuts. Oh, yum, 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 yum. Peanuts, really good. They'll close it and then they'll put it down on a table. No ally, none of the 8 other allies besides me will pick that up and move it anywhere. That will stay there for the rest of time. It's only me that will walk in and be like, oh, there's a couple of bags of food. I'll just put these in the green room. Nope, just nobody. They just watch over. I think it's just kind of like garage remnants of just kind of like, this isn't my house, you know? It's like, this is the office. Or the cleaning person's going to pick that up. Well, we don't have one, so got to pick those up. What is it? What is the song? Maybe nobody knows the song. Leave it, Jones. Yeah, just leave it. Has the amount of bottles left around decreased since Ian left? Well, no, Ian loves to chuck those, so Ian doesn't leave them around that much. And Ian's are easy to find because they're usually on the control desk. But yeah, sorry I don't have anything more about Blood Brothers. It's been a long time. It's been like 20 years since I've seen it, so I don't know. And I don't remember the name of that song, but I think I've sung that at like a concert or something. But seems like you do have a cleaning person, wink, wink. Yep, yeah. Father Cashew, I was wondering, but if that is important to the UK, I apologize. I have no more to say than that. I wish I could. What is that song? Maybe I can say one more thing. I can hear my phone blowing up. Oh, am I getting noise there? No. Okay. Blood Brothers. Where are the songs? Give me the list of the songs. Musical numbers. Marilyn Monroe, maybe? That's like the opening number. I don't know. Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe. Boy, I gotta listen to the show again. All right. I'm gonna give Blood Brothers a shot. Listen to that one again. Anything else that came up you want me to tack onto? No, I just had I didn't have a lot of really important announcements, Blood, this morning. I don't know if there's anything else you want to remind me to mention. I talked about the tournament tomorrow night, Hologrates next week. I'm doing Game of Thrones reactions with Damiani, Days Gone review Thursday morning, and I'm streaming Dreams tomorrow. So there's a lot of personal stuff. I didn't talk about a lot of like company-wide stuff. We might have had one or two questions. Maybe chat can remember something that I wanted to throw out to Bloodworth. Blood Brothers talked about you. Father Cashew, I was wondering if I could get your spoiler-filled takes on the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. You touched on it briefly in the last episode, mentioned how you realized that you still love Star Wars, and I felt something similar. Don't leave. I'm not going to talk about spoilers. We talked about this on Frame Trap. And as is evidenced near the end, but I figured I'd read the question. I had real problems with The Last Jedi. Real ones. Real problems. Not those fake problems you hear about with movies. Real ones. So I must say I was quite surprised at how quickly I was reeled back in. I don't know if I'm just eating up the trailer bait. You are, but it's good. It's delicious bait. But the twist they introduced admittedly got my attention. I'm still concerned about the lack of vision for this trilogy. I kind of feel that Abrams and Johnson are simply retconning each other's work at this point, and there's no way a single movie can resolve the story problem sitting on our lap, but I still think I'm hopeful. Well, I mean, you know, Episode 3 didn't fix that trilogy, and Return of the Jedi, there were still lots of questions after Return of the Jedi. So there's always going to be holes. There's always going to be questions about Star Wars stories. Anyhow, enough of my takes. I know it's been over a week, but I haven't been able to get much out of any of the other allies due to spoiler protection or media blackout. So I figured I'd ask you outright. What did you think of the trailer? Where's your excitement level for the film? Edit just caught up in the latest Frame Trap and got my fill. You can skip this question if you like. But just to everyone who was curious, Cup of Jones fans who maybe did not catch the last episode of Frame Trap, we talked about it a lot. There you go. Chris Gorgaris. It's not Gorgaris. It's something else. You told me how to pronounce that, and I'm going to settle back into Gorgaris. I'm sorry. I'd love to hear you sing some Phantom of the Opera. I don't know how many like singing requests I'm going to do. I love Phantom. I did sing Phantom the other day because I was talking about Michael Crawford. But I remember I was bummed because I sang a song in a show that I did in college. It was like a variety show, and there were two people came up and they sang, "That's all I ask of you, say you'll love me," that duet, and I was like, damn, I'd rather sing that. That's a good song. So there you go. There's a little bit of Phantom for you. Confused Hulk, I need to get something. I just don't want every Cup of Jones to be like, Jones, sing this. Like, I'm not going to sing the song. Confused Hulk, I need to get something off my chest about y'all's Frame Trap discussion about Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi. To be clear, what follows is mostly aimed at the toxic fans and content creators, whereas I consider EZA very good-natured when it comes to this. However, the extreme level-headedness you approach game and movie criticism with is a tad less present when you discuss Star Wars. I understand why. However, it might embolden fans who cannot let go of their expectations for the series. I know this is hard to stomach, but fans have zero ownership over Star Wars, aside from the fans who actually get to work on the movies. Totally. Creators must make choices. A movie must exist. And it's our job as viewers and critics to analyze how well they followed through on those choices. Ask, how well were those characters and themes established? Did the characters have clear dramatic arcs that tie into the themes? Did the creators follow through on those themes or back out? For example, instead of understanding how well the entirety of The Last Jedi was built around Luke throwing the lightsaber off the cliff and how well it justifies and builds on that moment, many simply dislike it and say, not my Star Wars, and get angry. But those people get angry because they're afraid of change. They allow that anger to turn into hate and then blame the creators for their suffering, for ruining their franchises and childhood. It is the path to darkness. So I say let's not encourage it. Again, I consider Easy a very good nature when it comes to all of this. Are there any other properties you catch yourself doing this to? Terminator? I don't know. Yeah, Final Fantasy. I have expectations when it comes to Final Fantasy. I can't help it. To steer this away from the Star Wars-ness. I always try to frame my Last Jedi arguments around like very specific issues that had nothing to do with my expectations, but just what happened in that 2 hours. Like what goes on in this short amount of time that I need to be prepared for emotionally and need to understand is happening with all the other things. So if I feel a character's doing something that is kind of pointless, it's not because it's pointless because of my expectations, because of what happened in Force Awakens. It's just, I mean, maybe like Snoke and Phasma are like the two that like, did I watch the wrong movie before I watched this? Yeah, definitely Final Fantasy, because when I first heard of Final Fantasy, I saw like swords and shields, and I was like, cool. And then I like saw like, you know, footage or screenshots of Final Fantasy IV, and I was like, oh, that looks neat, 2 in the States. And then a friend of mine had 6/3 on the Famicom and invited me over to his house and was like, you got to play this. And I was like, well, this looks amazing. When does this come out? Are we going to play this? And he's like, I don't know. It just came out in Japan. And then it eventually came to the United States, and I had kind of missed it by then. And my friend Jeff, who co-founded GameTrailers.com with me, had it and actually stole it from him. I was at his house and he showed it to me, and I just kept it. I was like at his house and I just took it home with me. And then he called me that night and he's like, did you take Final Fantasy VI? And I was like, I did. Yeah, I can't help it. You showed me this amazing game. I want to play it. And then 7 came out. And I was like, huh? And I went back and looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was like, huh, this is very different than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all seemed to kind of remake 1 visually in terms of, I mean, 6 has like a steampunk element to it, but I was like, wow, 7's a departure. We got like computers and cell phones and skyscrapers and helicopters and machine guns and it. Well, I mean, there's, you know, assault rifles in 6, but like just stylistically, I was like, whoa, this is really different. And I was like, okay, well, maybe 8, they'll get back to the original. And then 8 was like, whoa, like 8 was like, okay, now we're in a school and this is like very anime and okay. And I didn't play 7 and I didn't play 8 because I was like, I'm just not into these styles. I'm not into these worlds, just these characters, the storylines, they don't interest me. And then 9 came out and I was like, here we go. And I played 9 and I was like, yes, these were the other, you know, even like tactics. I was like, right, this is where I thought we were. I thought we were in this like mostly, you know, classic medieval fantasy world. And then 10 was like, no, we're playing soccer. And I was like, oh, okay. Like we're in spaceships. We have lasers. I was like, I got it. I was confused. I'm sorry. I thought, like, I guess this franchise can just kind of make up whatever they do. And then Final Fantasy 11 comes along and they're like, no, we're going back to the original. And I was like, okay, great. And then 12 was like, yeah, we're kind of getting more back to Ivalice and to fantasy and castles and you know, all these, you know, big crazy monster types. And I was like, got it. And the 13's like, nope. And I was like, oh, all right. And then 14's like, we're going back. And then 15's like, nope. And I'm like, okay. So I feel this kind of like tug of war between, you know, like Nomura being like, science fiction. And I'm like, all right, just give it to him because the guy just wants to put it in space. Just let him put it in space, you know? Like, so yeah, I feel bad, and this is Cup of Jones. This is why I'm going through this. This is not a rant. It's just my experience with Final Fantasy, my dumb personal opinions. But it's why, you know, like somebody brought up Final Fantasy 15, right? I think I brought it up, and I was like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. And they were like, elaborate, and I'm like, I don't need to. Like I like even though Final Fantasy 15 is not my style, it's not my bag, I'm still not going to like, push aside all other topics on our shows and be like, I'm here to say how much I don't like Final Fantasy 15. It's just like, I just don't play it, don't talk about it. But sometimes just by the nature of this business, I do wind up in a room where people are talking about it and they look at me and they're like, what do you think, Jones? I'm like, very little. Final Fantasy always had robots and such, but yeah, the worlds felt more rugged in a way. I mean, yeah, they, there's, yeah, I did, like, when we did the Final Fantasy retrospective, I mentioned that 7 was a vast departure from 1 through 6. And some people in the comments were like, no, it wasn't. And it's like, yes, it was. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just, it's a very different looking world, than this world that I just played. It's not a bad thing, especially for people like 7, like Brad loves 7. I love that Brad loves 7. Brad's love of 7 makes me love 7 more. Just not for me. So there you go. Tyson Wynn. Have you and or Amanda heard of The Wizard People, Dear Reader series by Brad Neely? If I have, I've forgotten about it. It's essentially an audiobook that could be played over the first Harry Potter film. It's from 2004, so the humor might be a little crude now, but it was a good bout of fun when I last listened to it. Nope, and I texted that to Amanda. We'll check that out. Kyle Quintero. All of the Star Wars talk on Frame Trap got me wondering, back to Star Wars, if you could create a hypothetical amazing Star Wars game, what genre would it be? Over the last 25 years, I feel old typing that, I've seen pretty much everything from side-scrollers to MMOs to first and third-person shooters. It's almost all been done already. So if you got to make a new one of any type, what would you pick? I've said this before, and I will say it very briefly. I'd make a game just called Jedi. It would just be called Jedi. People would be like, just Jedi? Yes. Imagine how hype that is. We're making a game just called Jedi. Star Wars Jedi. And every level would bounce around, kind of like be an anthology series where levels would take place in different time periods and they'd bounce around. It wouldn't be chronological. And you'd be Yoda in one level and Obi-Wan in another level and young Obi-Wan in another level and Anakin in one level and then, Mace Windu in another one. And that would be the campaign. And then after you finished each campaign level, you would unlock that Jedi to be played in multiplayer. And then there would be a big battle royale Jedi go nuts in multiplayer. If you go back to one of the lesser loved Star Wars games, but still has a mode that is so sweet, is Obi-Wan on the Xbox. It was exclusive for the Xbox. And it was in the prequels, and it had a really weird control scheme, but had some other oddly fun, fascinating things about it, like the right analog stick is your lightsaber, which didn't work out that great. But they had a mode where you could just go to the Jedi Temple and just fight a bunch of Jedi. And you could just like force jump out of the way and just watch like Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi and Yoda and like everybody just Qui-Gon and just beat the crap out of each other. And then so I would just watch them all fight, and then like one or two people would be left, and then the AI would notice me and then come over and start fighting me and have to fight them. But that would be fun. Just a big third person Star Wars action game where you play every Jedi that's ever lived, basically. Count Dooku level, a Vader level, you name it, a Saj Ventress level. Steve S., following up on your Frame Trap appearance, you said that Return of the Jedi is your #1 Star Wars film. Lots of Star Wars. Would you be able to share your rankings for all 10 Star Wars films? Curious how you rank them. I didn't do this beforehand. Let's do it right now. Let's rank them all, folks. Well, yeah, I'll do my favorite. This is my favorites. This isn't what I consider like the best. It's just my faves. That pen is dying. Need more pens. Yeah, Return, which would put Empire probably at number 2. Star Wars number 3. 4 would probably be Rogue One. 5 is Force Awakens. 6 would be Solo. And then the other trilogy in reverse order. Last Jedi. No. Sorry, Last Jedi. Last Jedi. Yeah, I'll put Last Jedi just underneath there. Last Jedi underneath Solo. Suck it, Last Jedi. And then 8, 9, 10 is, 3 and then 2 and then 1. There are some people out there, and they're entitled to their opinions, that think that the Clone Wars is worse than Phantom Menace, and I vehemently disagree. I think the Phantom Menace is the worst Star Wars anything. I could watch the Star Wars Christmas special right now over the Phantom Menace. I could watch every episode of Ewoks over the Phantom Menace right now. The Phantom Menace is just awful. Just the entire thing. There's no part of Phantom Menace I enjoy. Not even the pod race or the last fight anymore. It's just like, ugh. Grr, poodoo. Matt Bolenbach, does the creator/consumer dynamic ever weird you out? I don't know you personally. I may know things about you, but I certainly don't know you. You don't know me either. You may recognize my name, but you don't know me. Still, we are in some sense a part of one another's lives. I have spent a lot of time with you in my ears, driving to and from work, watching my daughter's gymnastic class, mowing the lawn, doing dishes, laundry, or other housework, whereas I, in a very minor way, contribute to your primary source of income. Technology is amazing, and the connections it enables are fascinating. But does it ever weird you out? Sometimes it weirds me out. That's Bolenbach adding that last little sentence at the end. It's totally weird. Oh, it's super weird. And that weirdness is double-edged. It's weird. There's the uncertainty. It's weird that, whoa, our Patreon just dropped to 49K. We should get another mega sponsor and encourage people to sponsor us if they're able. But at the same time, the weirdness also contributes to our freedom, to this idea that we can do, Ian, when necessary, can take time off. Tabletop can go on hiatus if need be. We can, stop doing retros, and hopefully our Patreon won't take too much of a hit, so that we can then focus on things that are much more important to us, or that we feel are more important to ourselves and more importantly to our schedules. But at the same time, it can be scary to kind of bend and twist the Patreon in terms of people's expectations, and which is why we always try to match those things. Which is why I think my biggest answers with business questions are always in terms of people being like, this is not what I expected. Can you kind of explain what we're doing moving forward? Where I think, promos are really important for us right now in terms of communicating where, Easy Allies the Patreon, Easy Allies the website, Easy Allies the studio, all of that is moving forward. Yeah, super weird. I mean, this relationship is very bizarre because there are some members of our community I know in person. There are other members of my community, this community, like Elthanis, for example. Elthanis has been a patron, a podcast producer forever. Elthanis has given us $500 almost every single month of the operation of Easy Allies. I know this person. I communicate with them on email, but they're just like, hey, just helping out. It's like, yeah, helping out in a really, really, really big way. And not really asking for anything, not asking to plug anything, just supporting us. So it's weird to know some people that have only been, $1 patrons forever, and then to not know other people who have given us, thousands and thousands of dollars over the years. It's fun though when I go out to a concert and people shout out to me from the crowd. Nice. It's this Bloodworth. Yeah, and I think the trick has been to kind of manage those relationships that we do have. Naturally, we are going to recognize some names over other names. Some people don't contribute that much or more than others, and some people don't contribute at all. Some people are at certain tiers. Some people have been getting fan mail ever since we first started Easy Allies and don't reply when we send out fan mail. They're like, nope, I'm just at that tier. Whether I read your fan mail and enjoy it, or whether I don't even read the fan mail, or whether I donate at the level just because that's what works out for me financially. And so I think the trick is making everybody feel welcome, to not focus so much. And we do focus, we do have love and respect questions in the Q&A and feedback on Friend Code and Frame Trap and Cup of Jones. And there are opportunities that we do have to connect verbally with our community. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's like a 100% return rate on submitting questions or being involved in things there's a guarantee that you will be involved. And so I just never want to give special attention to people. I think that's like the only fear that I have when it comes to that weirdness. The rest of that weirdness, Matt, I really enjoy. It's really strange. I like to be surprised by this job. I like to be, I like when, I want to try to be a know-it-all, but I like it when our community proves me wrong or teaches me about something that I didn't know. I'm certainly a better person because of Easy Allies and because of all of you. No question. ZZ, just curious that, given you are such a big fan of Final Fantasy VI, just musical theater, Star Wars, and Final Fantasy VI is what we will mostly be talking about in this episode of Cup of Jones. Have you ever tried out the Brave New World mod for Final Fantasy VI? No, I think I might have heard of it, but I don't know. If not, I would highly recommend you try it out at some point. It's a very ambitious mod that does a whole bunch of balance changes, as well as adding a bunch of different mechanics to the game, all of which makes for a refreshing replay of an old classic. Not a big mod guy, gotta be honest. It was just a culture I never really got into, and so I don't naturally gravitate toward those things. But maybe one day it'd be fun to, pinch my arm and make me replay Final Fantasy VI. Twist my arm, rather. You can pinch it too if you want. The twisting would probably be more effective. Morgan Mulhalla, what do you want to see more of in video games? Not meaning cultural or specific demographic representations, though that seems like it's on the rise and good for the industry. I mean, your own selfish inclusions. Oh, I totally got one. I don't know how it would all fit together, but I would like the Nemesis system from the Mordor games, sniper missions from Hitman, environmental storytelling from Souls games, Mount Condor base defense from Final Fantasy VII. I love base defense, always down for base defense, and pangolins. I gotta know what pangolins are. Pangolins. Blood Brothers the Musical and Pangolins are 2 web searches. Oh, look at these little guys. Pangolins. Oh, yeah. Kind of look like anteaters almost. These dudes rule. Yeah, we definitely need more pangolins. That's awesome. Pangolins, everybody. Pangolin hype. Blood loves pangolins. Pangolins are sweet. Pangolins. 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 Just a crazy selfish mashup that I would love and know would ever happen. How about you? Oh, I got an easy one. Super easy one, folks. And I mean, this is kind of nitpicky, but I'm going to go so far as to say games need to start doing this. I think, especially now that we're moving into a new generation, and I'm having games be like, now you are Kratos. You are, these characters. You are this person. Cool. Where do I sleep? Like, oh, I don't know. Just somewhere. It's like, I don't sleep anywhere. Like, do I eat food every now and then? Does this person eat food? I see the sun went down and then came back up. Am I tired? Do I have to sleep? And I'm not saying that all games need to do that. I know for resource management, and a lot of people that don't like survival games are like, no. But it's weird to me to play games, and it's like, I don't live anywhere. I don't have a home. Like, I'm not in this world at all. Like God of War, I'm assuming is supposed to have taken place in like one day. Like they didn't sleep, I guess, during God of War. They just don't. Like you literally move from there's no passage of time cutscene in God of War. You go from one thing to the next. Kratos has a bed. Okay. He does have a bed. You never go back though, but he does have a bed. It's true. But I remember playing Spider-Man and like, you can't go to Peter's apartment. I was like, really? I can't just stand in it. You modeled it. I've seen it. I can't just be in his room. It's like, nah, I don't care. And Red Dead Redemption 2 completely spoiled me in this regard. Like, it's like, no, you have to, this is where this goes down. This is where these people live. They will change attitudes. They will change conversations as they go along. And I was just like, damn, it sucks that no one is going to do this. It's not like, well, people do it. They just don't do it as good as Rockstar. Nobody cares. No one does this. Like, I guarantee you, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, Aloy will not have a bed. Aloy will not have a home or someplace that Aloy's like, this is my house. This is where I live. This is where I go. It changes. It updates. As I go through the game, there's a reason to go back there. It's interesting because when stuff is presented that way in games, I make this really clear mental departure from the world itself. I go, oh, okay. Well, now I'm just in it for the story, and I'll appreciate the world in its construction, but I don't really feel like I'm there. Like, I don't really feel like these events are happening in this world. I can appreciate them individually on their own, but it's really hard for me to like wrap my head around stuff like that when, it's like this person's not here. I think that also affects some characters because in some games and storylines, characters will only exist in cutscenes. So it's like I'm in the world, but like I can't go visit that person. I can't talk to them. Like they're not real. Like they're a story beat. It's like, oh, okay, you're a cutscene. Ah, hello, the door opened, and now hi. Now you're here, and okay, I guess we'll go do something. And then the cutscene's over, and they go back in their door, and the door closes, it's locked, and I can't go in there, and all right. Division 2 is the same thing. A lot of the characters are just like trapped behind doors, and it's just like, no, you can't go there because it's too much work, and like, I want that work. I want, as long as we're moving into the next gen, and it doesn't have to be everything, and it's not like Call of Duty, like, I need a house. Like, although some Call of Duties have done that, have given you a little base of operations, and it's really cool. But specifically, Last of Us, they're nomads, so I don't know how much we'll see of that in Last of Us 2. It'll probably be a journey, so it makes sense that they don't. That's just context given, because they're like, you're surviving, you're moving from point A to B to C to D. But if you have an open world, single player, character focused game, give me a house, give me a bed, give me people that are my friends that I hang around with. Like, give me something that happens, some area in the game that is emblematic of my life, because I get the vibe in games that they're like, what do you mean your life? Your life is the game. Your game is your life. And so like, it's hard for me to get a sense of like, what does this person do? Like, I haven't played a lot of the Yakuza games. Do you have a home in Yakuza? Is there like, do you know like that, even if you can't go into your apartment, or you like, that's the building it's in, at least I know, like I can look at the map and be like, there's my house. That's where I live. I don't know. Does it? I don't know. Morgan Mahala. Sorry. Fabian Overjagink, who gave me the pronunciation of his name, and that certainly was not it. As you probably know, Avengers Endgame will be coming out this week. Are you personally looking forward to the film? Yeah. Do you think it can even live up to expectations after Infinity War? No. Man, the disappointed takes are going to be rampant. Everyone will be like, that's not the way I wanted it to end. I don't care. I have no expectations for how it should end. I'm also frustrated with a lot of people being like, well, we know there's a Black Panther movie, so he must live. Therefore, I don't care. You're like, all right. I don't agree with that take. Are you doing a spoiler mode or some other show about the movie? Yes, we have a spoiler mode scheduled for next Tuesday night to sit down and talk about those spoilers. Enjoy it, everybody. One more personal question, and then we were out at a very brief 2.5-hour running time for an episode of Cup of Jones. This is pretty good. Kiryu does have an apartment. Nice. Majima's apartment in Yakuza 0 is very Spartan. In 0, you have homes. Cool. Okay, great. Full rant on that Jones wasn't even interested in glancing at chat. Elder Scrolls and Fallout have always had houses, correct. Beds and perks for sleeping, totally. Spider-Man references Peter sleeping at Feast, etc. though. Yeah, down the road, he eventually does that. Spoilers. You never set foot in his apartment ever. You see it in the opening cutscene of the game, and then you never go back. You can fast travel there, but you literally can't stand in the room. Elder Scrolls is great in terms of relationships and stuff like that too. Elder Scrolls is really good in terms of where characters are. I remember when I replayed Skyrim in VR, I went back to Whiterun, and it was the first time you fight a dragon. So I fight a dragon outside of Whiterun, and then I go back to Whiterun, and the character that I was with said, go back and tell the Jarl and everybody what happened. And so I was like, okay. So I go back, and I'm talking to the people at the gates, and the person I went to go fight the dragon with comes back into Whiterun and walks by me and like looks at me as they're walking past me. And I was like, yes, like that's the kind of stuff that I want. Let's see if anybody else. He said I wasn't reading chat, so Blood was offended. I'm trying to think of anybody. Link has a house in Breath of the Wild, right? Yep. The Link definitely has a house in Breath of the Wild. I love that context. So yeah, I'm not saying like no games do this. I just Red Dead Redemption did it much more elaborately than other games do, and so when it doesn't pop up, maybe there's an open world game I've been playing recently that has issues with this. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe. Stay tuned. But yeah, I want more people to do it. It's more glaringly obvious to me now when it doesn't happen, when these offenders come up, where I'm like, have a house. Let me know what my life is like or should be like. Because that's the other thing too. Like in a lot of games, you're fighting to reclaim a normal life, and it's like, well, if I don't even know what that means, if I get past the credits and all of my friends aren't even around, it's like, well, then I didn't win, did I? Sergey P. I wonder what you think about this news. Disney cancels Avengers Endgame English screenings in Russia. As a Russian, I'm beyond confused. Some suits decided I can't watch the most anticipated movie of the year, just like that. Of course, there's a dubbed version, but after watching all the Marvel stuff with the original audio, the culmination happens and I'm forced to listen to dubbed voices? The hell with it. I guess I could make a visa and visit Finland for one day to watch an English version, but that seems a bit like overkill, although it would be quite a fun trip, never have been to Finland. Anyway, what are your general feelings about dubbed content? Do you prefer original audio with or without subtitles like me, or is dub a way to go? The only reason I would do something, first of all, that sucks. That's horrible. I don't know why. Yeah, that's very, very bizarre. That's why specifically in Russia, and why for such a big movie, why for such a movie that they knew was going to be coming this entire time. That seems like such a weird, specific issue. I'm very curious why something like that happened. But subs v dubs. I prefer dubs in that I am working a lot and I like to put stuff on in the background. If I'm like, if there's a documentary, I can't do that because some documentaries will have, people in their native language and have subtitles. And I'm just like, oh, wait, I watched a really interesting documentary recently called The Spy Who Fell from Earth, Fell from Earth. And it is about a spy who was active in the conflict between Egypt and Israel. And there's just a lot. I had to like stop and wait. What did he say? Okay, interesting. And so there's a lot of content that I can enjoy in that way because it is done in another language. So I appreciate dubs. But at the same time, I haven't played Sekiro in a while, but I'm currently playing through the campaign in Sekiro, and I loved when I booted up Sekiro, and they were like, this game will default in Japanese. And I was like, then be in Japanese, please. If that's the way you would like me to enjoy this game, then I will definitely enjoy this game with subtitles and enjoy listening to the Japanese language. JoJo, the first 2 seasons are on Netflix right now, which I've seen, and it was fun going back and listening to that in Japanese, listening to Dio in Japanese and Speedwagon in Japanese and these other characters. Be like, oh, okay, that's fun, their interpretation. Somebody posted a clip of Sekiro in English and how bizarre it was. Somebody came out and he said it was the guy on the horse, came out and said his name on horseback, and it's like, no, not the way it was originally intended. So those are my general feelings about dubbed content. I'm with you, man. I probably wouldn't go see it dubbed either. I would go see the original, and I'm so sorry that happened. That sucks. A sad way to end this very, Avengers hyped episode of Cup of Jones, but hopefully, but for films like The Raid, I cannot go dubbed because of how much it takes out of the film. It comes down to immersion, I suppose. It says 007 Mental, who probably thinks that GoldenEye holds up. It depends on every single product. I imagine I would have different dumb reasons for why I'd want to listen to something in a certain language. I think it mostly comes down to convenience for me. But always fun to listen to things in their original language, just to get a sense of language as an attitude, as a vibe. You listen to to Spanish in different Spanish speaking countries, and there definitely is a change in, from Mexico to Spain, and you lose a little bit of that flavor. I love it, actually. I can't remember the last movie that I saw that did this. Oh, it was somebody was interrogating somebody, and I think it was the Thomas Crown Affair with Rene Russo. She had to interrogate someone like in Turkish or something, and they didn't put subtitles up. And I always love that. I think that's like a fascinating thing for a filmmaker to be like, I don't want you to know what they just said unless you speak that language. Then you have a view into that. But if you don't, I remember a friend of mine, Brent Phillips, who built EasyAllies.com, knows a little bit of German and enough to know. He was playing a Medal of Honor game, and they were speaking German, and it was not subtitled, and he still knew what they were saying, and he was like, "Oh, that's cool. It's cool that I can pick up on that even without subtitles." So that can be fun too in movies, where they're like, "I intentionally wanted that to be kind of a wink, between those characters, or for you not to know that language." For 007 Mental, I'll tell you a fun scene that I enjoyed that did have subtitles, but in The World Is Not Enough, God, what is it? Denise Richards plays a scientist, and she is kind of curious that James Bond is a spy, and so she says, "Wow, your English is very good for a Russian." And he turns around and he says, in Russian, "I studied at Oxford." And I love that. I love when, I don't know if you've ever seen The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, but there's a fun scene where he learns language and he kind of surprises a character by, haha, I know that language. I've been listening to you this entire time. I love those moments. Those always are great payoffs in movies. So language can be a fun thing to play around with, but not if you cancel the original English version of a series that you've done 15, 16 movies in leading up that have all apparently been in English and then are not. Let's all pour one out for Sergey, who's got to go to Finland to watch the Avengers. I was nervous about getting tickets for the Avengers, but at least I get to watch that in the United States, and I don't have to go to Mexico or Canada to watch it. That sucks. Cheers to you, sir. And cheers to everybody else on a successful Cup of Jones episode. I can't remember if we had this scheduled for 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. I got to reach out to Damiani to see when we are going to be streaming, or if we haven't. I was in Days Gone land, so I have not been very communicative unless it was the very important stuff in on Slack. So hopefully it's still going on today. I believe it is. But 21 movies, 21 movies in 10 years. Wow, that's crazy. They won one of the recent trailers that actually is a bit spoilery. If you're dodging Endgame spoilers, don't watch the latest Endgame trailer. But they do go through every single movie, show the logo and do little quick bits, and it's wild to see all the where we've come, everything that's happened. That will culminate the next time we sit down and have a Cup of Jones. I will know the fate of many characters on Game of Thrones, and I will know the fate of the Avengers. We'll find out this weekend. So my best to you, our takeaways, make Blood's episode list a premium tab on the website. Oh yeah, Blood, your episode list, I'm assuming of Cup of Jones, they were curious if we could make that a premium tab on easyallies.com. And there was some information that was not available. I don't remember specifically in the questions. We can talk about this later. That they wanted available on Patreon. So, the exclusive shows. You can't see exclusive shows on mobile. That little exclusive shows tab doesn't show up on mobile. So it's like, is there a way we can integrate with our website or let people know other ways to go get lists of our exclusive shows that we do? Post an audio version of the Q&A, which I have recommended before. Consider changing the language of the RPG trivia game show, because it may make it sound like it's a game show about RPGs. And possibly consider, keeping the gold leaderboard of Mysterious Monsters. So there's a place you can go to check what the scores are, who has got the most. I did get a fair amount of gold on my run at Mysterious Monsters. I'm happy about that. Accessible Patreon exclusive shows link for mobile users. There we go. Those are our main takeaways. And I wish all the best to you in this week to avoid all the spoilers that could possibly be coming your way, Mortal Kombat or Avengers or Game of Thrones related. Again, apologies for not having like a ton of news updates or anything. I've just been very focused on Dreams and Days Gone and other specific projects. But we will obviously have more, possibly more to talk about next week, because we have our Q&A and our meeting for the month of May, about the month of May this week. So we might have some fun updates to share next week. Or if not, at least a clearer picture kind of what's going on with our E3 coverage. And I said I'm going to start working on a promo for our E3 coverage and also a promo for Easy Allies. Every time I boot up our YouTube channel and that piano starts and it's like, we're in the studio. It's like, I got to replace this video. we need something else up there, because the ship has sailed. We are in that studio. We are working in that studio. We're making stuff in that studio. It's time to talk about other stuff. And we will next week on another Cup of Jones. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully I read chat enough for Bloodworth. Cheers. Take care.